Hello and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a good place to forget bad things sometimes. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Jeff Marchiafava.
Hey!
And then a bunch of interesting faces here. Marcus Stewart, returning champion. Thank you for being here, Marcus.
Hey. Yeah.
Marcus Makes Media's YouTube channel. I saw you've been streaming Halo 3 recently.
Yeah, doing a series called Finishing the Fight, where I'm going through the back half of the Halo games that I've not played, getting ready for Halo Infinite. So it's going to be Halo 3 now, and then move on to ODST 4, and then I'm going to replay 5, which I did play, but without playing any of the prior games. So.
Oh, weird. What is what's your memory of 5? Positive, negative, blah? It seemed like from my read it was a lot of but that ending is a little bit nuts. What was your read overall?
Considering the only campaign I touched before it was Reach, it was like, okay, Cortana's bad now. I know enough to know that she wasn't bad before, and even like, I don't know if it's because society had kind of like influenced me, but I was like watching it, I was like, I feel stupid, right? Is this just me? I don't know why. Like this, even as someone with no context, this feels a little dumb. So I'm really excited to get back to it, having played the rest of the series, to see why people were kind of upset at that game,
right,
campaign and stuff. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. We're also joined by Brian Vore. Oh, who has muted his mic somehow. One more time, Brian Vore.
Really?
Okay, there it goes.
There you go.
Now we got you. Now we got
the whole time.
That's weird. Hey, Brian, you're an old voice. If people remember their Game Informer history, they probably remember you and your smiling face and your laughs during replay. But what was your run at Game Informer? What era were you?
Oh, geez. I was a good 11 years there. I think around, was it 2004 to mid 2015?
Okay.
So I started out on that, like as an advertising assistant and an intern. And I did like the 2 or 3 man version of Game Informer Online that was way different than what you see now. And then I had a very brief, sweet period of being print only, which you'd have one monthly deadline, which is unbelievable. And then, of course, when we relaunched the previous relaunch of what is now Game Informer, everyone was all on everything, but
all over the place. And then you left to move out to the San Francisco area to do some social media for the wrestling games for a very, very long time. And now you are back in Minnesota?
Yes, finally back. Feels good. It's nice. There's like rain here and stuff. And,
interesting.
Affordable housing. It's great.
Yeah, Minneapolis has its problems these days, but hey, we got rain. So what are you going to do? Come on by, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Brian, thank you for being here. Also joined by Charles McGregor.
Hello.
Welcome. Charles, this is your first time on the show, but it's a confusing history because it's not your first time in the MinnMax studio, even though you aren't there right now. Because we recorded a whole season of a podcast for Glitch called Hello Player that you were really the star of because you are the sole developer of HyperDot.
Yeah. It's a really weird thing because I've also technically been on the podcast, but as a audience member at VGMCon. So, it's been a really confusing kind of thing there.
Yeah, and then you're always jumping in on Twitch for Great Goaty Hunts and stuff at Dark A's TG, I think is your name on Twitch and the Discord.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for being here, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
HyperDot, now that the thing is out the door, how are you feeling? How was the whole experience? Tell us like the most satisfying moment of creating a great game all by yourself and then launching it out into the world.
Geez. So tough. Probably one of the more satisfying experiences in terms of like the game itself has been like just seeing like the responses from people and like them reaching out and going out of their way to reach out to me. I've gotten like some emails or some DMs on Twitter and stuff like that, just like saying that they really appreciate the game. And like that kind of stuff is just like mind blowing. I have no idea how I've created something that has impacted them in that kind of way. And that's just, it's just amazing.
There's a very sweet thread a while ago where Greg Miller called you to congratulate you on the game, and you're a huge Kind of Funny fan, and I think your heart and face melted off.
Yes, that was a really accurate statement, because I was just from after that call, I was going to my old high school to like show off HyperDot and like talk to the students and stuff, and that was not. I was like, I have no idea what to do now. How do I operate? Luckily, they just wanted to play the game, and they actually didn't want to talk to me. But yeah.
But I love the idea of like, being you're probably a little bit nervous about like going to the school and talk about it, and then it's just like having a lightning bolt of nerves of just talking to Greg Miller out of the blue. Then it's just like, all right, rest of the day, easy pickings. This is going to be great.
Yeah. No problem. Yeah, after that, I was just like, okay, yeah, no more. And like, this is nerves. The other stuff, not nerves. That's nothing anymore.
Right. And HyperDot, it's on Game Pass now, right?
Yeah. So that was also like, what? The HyperDot thing I made is on Xbox Game Pass. So yeah, you can actually get HyperDot both on the Xbox and the PC with Game Pass, which is just, again, like, well, no, nothing makes sense.
Yeah. And so you supported MinnMax in a big way. Thank you for that, along with Glitch. And so we were plugging HyperDot throughout the month, and I felt like it was every week just being like, hey, people, please leave a review on Steam. How are the Steam reviews doing? Have you crossed a threshold to have the very positive or overwhelmingly positive or whatever that would be yet?
So we haven't crossed that threshold, largely because we definitely have enough reviews. It's just a lot of them have come from other sources, whether it be like Itch, or they've gotten like a key through like one of our giveaways and stuff.
Yeah.
So Steam doesn't count those towards that positive. We're one away from being able to actually get a positive review.
So please, if you're watching this or listening to this, check out HyperDot. It's awesome, and leave a Steam review if you can. Jeff, did you ever end up finishing HyperDot's challenges?
I haven't, no, but I do want to go back to it.
It is one of those. Cool. Loved it, obviously, before it came out. Loved it when it came out. And now, throughout 2020, I think it's just going to sit in that tier of like, oh, I need to get back to HyperDot. It's like that perfect level of just pick up and play arcadey Twitch reflexes. If you like Geometry Wars, definitely check it out. The Game Pass thing. I know you can't flash the legal paperwork on the screen, but how does that work? Do you get like just a big wad of money, or is it buy the downloads, or how does the whole Game Pass experience work from a developer's point of view?
So there's redacted, and redacted. Also redacted plus redacted. No. There are some like NDA things that I can't talk about, which also is weird that I have NDA things I can't talk about. But it's similar to, if you're familiar with like PlayStation Plus, where like a developer would be or there's like a agreement between, like, I guess in this case it would be Xbox or Microsoft, between the two beforehand, and then you would get paid away.
Wait, what was the last part? You cut out for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you would get a payout that way. You would get a payout with you would have like some type of agreement beforehand.
So okay, gotcha. So with Game Pass, it's just like that volume of feedback and streams, and then it's not a matter of getting paid per download, but it's got to still be super satisfying to see.
Oh yeah, it was insane. Like the first 3 days, specifically, just like the influx of people playing the game and like getting all these like tweets of, oh, I hate the triangles, or these stars suck.
Turns out, yeah, when you're playing HyperDot, you learn to hate every shape under the sun.
Yes. Oh, it's so satisfying, especially because there's a hater for every shape. And that's
good.
What I love, is that everyone has their own hated shape.
I thought
the most like surprising feedback that you got like on day one, that you were like, came out of left field.
Ooh, came out of left field. I think the most surprising thing that I got was actually, it was a little bit before the Game Pass stuff, but it was on the accessibility stuff. We beforehand had like a huge campaign for we gave early access to streamers who had disabilities, and had them play the game and then give us feedback on trying to get like figuring out, oh, is there things that we can do to make this more accessible and streamlined for them. And after the game first launched, we had received a 10 out of 10 in both accounts on I believe it was Can I Play This? Which is like an accessibility review site, which is just like, what? That doesn't make sense. Again, none of these things make sense to me. It's just like, these are long standing, oh yeah, I really want to do this, I'll do this in the future kind of things, and now the future is here.
I like the idea of you busting your ass to be an indie game developer for years and years and years and years and years, and then you achieve success, and it's like, oh no, this isn't real. Okay, moving on. You just gotta let it sink in.
It doesn't exist.
But I thought of you the other day with The Last of Us 2 gameplay that Naughty Dog revealed, and how much they emphasized the Vita in there, because outside of maybe Greg Miller, kind of funny, you're the world's biggest Vita defender.
Oh, I love the Vita. I actually have 2 Vitas off camera over there. So yeah, I'm totally on that Vita island.
And you have those 2 so you can make them kiss?
Well, the first one I had broke, so then I got a second one, but then I fixed the first one, so now I have 2.
Okay, perfect. Obviously, MinnMax is based out of Minnesota, based out of Minneapolis. This is a very bizarre time for Minneapolis, and bizarre time for the country and the world. And it's been stressful. It's been surreal. I mean, driving through the streets of Minneapolis is just like, oh man, I love this town. I've always loved this town. I want to say I love this town, but it feels weird to say that without a comma now and be like, but it obviously has its issues, and those are coming out in full force here. Marcus, you had an interesting message on Twitter where you just said, like, it's important to stay positive during all of this and like try and see the upside, which I appreciated.
Yeah. Like everyone else, this has been extremely stressful, and I've felt a lot of anxiety from all this. But what's gotten me through it is just like at least trying to focus on all the cool stuff that people are doing. And like whenever I see videos of just the protests and just all the crazy stuff, a lot of times I just see like the way people are going out of their way to help each other, either people that are hurt or just random acts of kindness like that. Like that's the stuff that really makes me happy, and kind of like a kind of like a restoring faith in humanity kind of thing, seeing that. And also just the overwhelming amount of support for the movement is nice to see. Like this would be more upsetting if most people didn't care or kind of had the opposite reaction.
Right.
But the fact that it feels like most people, especially like people that I know and surround myself with, are all just like, oh no, yeah, this is messed up. Yeah, this is a problem. We should do something about this. It's like validating and like reaffirming in like a cool way. It always sucks that it takes something really bad to kind of bring that out of people, but it's really awesome to know that we're all in this, like we're all on the same page on this, and that that everyone's awesome. It's
most people.
It's a tricky thing to kind of talk about, but
I hear you.
But,
and it's a weird, and Jeff, I'm curious if you've gone through this too, but it's like, it's like, okay, yeah, Black Lives Matter. Got it, for sure. Absolutely. Okay. Tragedy. And then I think throughout the last week, it's been this wave of like, I knew it was bad, but Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ, nobody's listening out there. Oh, this is so bad. It's like, it's been just the waves of descending deeper and deeper into, okay, yeah, it turns out we need to be screaming about this. I thought like, well, surely this system will course correct, and that's my own idiotic nature or maybe optimistic nature, and you realize like that's not, we need to do something here. It is time to act. It's not just time to tweet something out and then go on about your day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. What's your last week been like, Jeff?
It's been just really hard to process, I think, more than anything. Like I've cried a couple times just watching the news, because I think that's when it has really hit me, and sometimes it's for good reasons, like Marcus has been saying, where they highlight these neighborhoods coming together to actually help each other and support each other. That always makes me a little emotional. But yeah, it's I don't know what the hell's going on anymore at this point.
It is, yeah, it's just the weirdest feeling of like, oh, it's very clear people aren't listening. These seem like very clear statements, and it's hitting a brick wall after brick wall. Yeah, Charles, I saw you tweet the other day, just you're a little bit fried from the Twitter experience.
Yeah, just like social media in general, I've been trying to get off of for the past week, largely because the music, or not the music, the news has been on basically constantly since from like when it happened to maybe Saturday night, and it's just been like super draining to have that on all the time and like consume all of that. You want to react, you want to do something about it, but like so much of it coming in at one time and then not being able to just like turn it off. That was definitely something that I was trying to be more conscious of having like some type of mental health or mental stability, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so, yeah, Twitter, it's always a mess. You know, I was listening to a friend of the show's Blank Check's podcast about Mad Max Fury Road, and they kept saying that that movie is just a giant analogy for Twitter, and I can't get it out of my mind. I'm just screaming and hot takes, and people are like, I am the leader over here. No, I am. It's just chaos. It's just so much, and it'll completely fry you. And so something that I was really refreshed by overall is on Tuesday evening, we launched MinnMax's next charity drive, which it's been a little while because of COVID. We've kind of slowed down on that because it normally culminates in a community meetup, but we're like, F it, let's just launch it. Ana Diaz over here was a huge component of that, choosing the charity and giving a lot of great advice and stuff. And so we launched this, and so it's a GoFundMe, and it's called MinnMax Rebuilding Minneapolis. The link is in the description, also the pinned comment here on the YouTube version. And so it's all about rebuilding North Minneapolis, because I think there are a lot of donations flooding into certain areas, certain funds overall, but actually being in Minneapolis here, Anna brought up the good point that like, hey, a lot of these predominantly black neighborhoods are getting hosed in terms of attention when it comes to rebuilding the businesses and supporting the businesses here that have been affected both by COVID and by everything else that's been going on here in Minneapolis. And so if you'd like to feel good, feel better, try and make some action, we encourage you to go there. And 100% of those proceeds are going directly to a specific initiative here from the West Broadway Business and Area Coalition, and they're partnering with Northside Funders Group. And so we're going to be depositing all that money and donating it for them. And it is that weird flip of just feeling overwhelmed on every front, and then also just Twitter and getting fried from Twitter and just getting sick of just a lot of people just posting messages of, hey, Black Lives Matter. All right, moving on. You know, and it's like, it's just so nice to have some way to act and to show that. And the community has been beyond amazing so far. We keep setting goals on this charity drive, and they keep shattering them. So it has been absolutely amazing. So please check that out. And any amount that you can help donate would be appreciated, or, you know, just a retweet, help spreading the word. We'd appreciate that as well. Brian, how are you doing over there? Have you gotten out in Minneapolis much? I mean, it's got to be bizarre to come back to the city that you love and see it in the state that it's in.
You know, it was tricky. I traveled across country to get our car back during COVID stuff, and I was like, well, this is the weirdest it's going to be. But
yeah.
No, it's obviously, you know, all the stuff has been boiling, you know, I guess for like a white guy, it's been boiling under the surface. You've seen the news, you see, you know, a lot of the, you know, when a black person gets killed, it flares up, and it's like, now we're at the point where, you know, it just boiled over, and I'm just trying to learn and listen, and really just hopefully we can kind of get the reforms that we need and get things changing. And
yeah,
you know, like everyone's saying, like it's been great to try to hopefully focus on, you know, the good work that's coming out, and great to see that you started the fundraiser to help out, and putting things into action has been the best things to follow.
Yeah,
for me,
for sure. Does anybody else want to say anything else about this experience so far?
Hang in there, everyone, all of us. Like you said, Ben. Try to do your part. Like if you can't, protest. If you're gonna do that, try to be safe for the love of God. And because things are wild out there. If you can't, don't feel guilty about it. Personally, I would like to go, but I can't just for because I live with someone who is compromised immune system, so I can't risk catching cooties and bringing them back here.
Right.
So do your part. Look up plenty of charities. I've been retweeting some stuff. Everyone pretty much is. So give what you can. Doesn't have to be a lot. I know a lot of us are still out of work or just now getting back to work and trying to rebuild our finances after being home for a month or so.
Right.
But every little bit counts. Just and I think Brian brought up a great point, learning to if you don't understand what it is, but you care, learning to just listen, just sit down and just listen. What is really the underlying reasons behind all this anger? I want to know, and not just oh yeah, sure, that's bad, I guess.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah. Because that's where real reform and change comes from, is understanding.
Yeah, and it's so bizarre. The media will obviously gravitate always towards the riots, the biggest moments, the biggest explosions of this entire event, and then you can watch live streams of peaceful protests all day. And it's this is the voices that aren't getting heard. This is the stuff that's not getting out there. And from my vantage point, it seems like Minneapolis is shifting in a positive direction overall, bigger peaceful protests overall, and it's really great to see, and I hope the voices reach where they need to reach. Obviously, because of this, Sony decided to delay the PlayStation 5 stream that they were going to have on Thursday. Remember how naive we were last week, Jeff, and when we were like, oh man, can't wait for that PlayStation 5 stream. On next week's episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking all about PlayStation 5 games.
Yep.
So dumb.
Yeah, I went and watched last week's episode, and I was like, oh, you guys are in for it.
Yeah, so that didn't happen. And so they delayed that. I don't believe they gave a date or a time for it either. It's just they'll reveal it when the world's ready. And so who the hell knows when everything's going to feel quote unquote normal again. It's just a chaotic thing. Also, a lot of people were sharing a bizarre image of the LA Convention Center, which we know is the home of E3. People were saying, oh, it's kind of like a military base now, with the amount of police around there, Humvees parked out there. It's just a good reminder of the state of the United States that right now, and what a chaotic time it is. But on the flip side, we could think a little bit about how next week was going to be the start of E3. In a normal year, this weekend is when we'd be flying out to cover E3. That's not happening this year. And so we thought, you know what? It might be a good time to go back and reflect on some of our favorite E3 memories. Going to E3 both as a developer, as a press. Brian, also on the publisher side, did you end up going to E3?
I did not. Didn't end up really fitting into the kind of marketing plan for that specific title. So
gotcha.
Just didn't really end up happening.
Yeah. I guess in total I ended up going to, 2011 was my first, and then 2019 was my last, and maybe the world's last. Marcus, how many have you been to?
I've been to 4, 2016 to 2019.
Okay. Jeff, do you have any count?
Like a half dozen. I can't remember.
And Charles, you went as a developer last year. Was that your first time?
That was my first time.
Oh my God. What was it like for you? You want to walk us through your experience of E3 last year?
Sure. It was, again, like I'm checking a box off of bucket list stuff of I have, for the longest time, E3 has been something on my screen that I've tuned into. But actually being able to attend at E3, and then not only do that, but then show a game off there, but then not only do that, also be on the Microsoft stage showing a game out there. is just yeah, like that kind of stuff is just like it was amazing. It was super exciting, but like really nerve-wracking to actually get it out in front of players and other developers and other like in press and stuff.
Yeah.
In E3, it was just like it's a really bizarre experience, especially the first day that E3 was open. It was basically from I want to say it was from 8 in the morning until 10 at night that we were manning the booth and being like, okay, yeah, so here's HyperDot. And then we went through the whole spiel and we got that down the first day. And they're like, okay, now we have to do this until Thursday. Luckily, it was a lot lighter loads the rest of the week, but like it was still a tough experience in terms of like, oh man, there's a lot of people coming through and stuff like that. But it was just surreal and amazing. Especially we were located like next to Ghost Recon, and then in front of us was Madden, and we were like, no, this isn't. This is like the only way that these two things would be next to each other, next to like HyperDot, would be if I was on a website and it was my blog, and then I just saw an ad for Madden and Ghost Recon. So yeah, it was just bizarre.
Well, did you ever see did you see the Punisher and his dog?
Did not. I didn't even get a chance to go to E3 proper because I was at the Microsoft Theater. I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because it's a separate building over there.
How long did your voice last?
Luckily, it actually lasted the entire time. We had a whole bunch of cough drops. We were prepared for that. So yeah, we were just downing cough drops and being like, "Hey, this is HyperDot. Please play our game," and all this other stuff. It was a lot of fun. We also learned that there is a pin economy. So if you want like exclusive pins, E3 is the place for that. And then we were actually fortunate enough, we were showing off the Microsoft Adaptive Controller. We were one of the few stations to actually have that available there. And so we had adaptive controller pins, which definitely helped people come over and be like, so I heard you had those adaptive controller pins.
You monsters. They don't care about it. Not at all.
It's like playing the world's end ends with you in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah, you got to play at least 10 minutes to get the pin.
Fine, I'll dodge some triangles, I guess. Brian, what was your first E3?
I actually looked it up just because I knew that's kind of what the theme of the podcast was going to be. It was 2005, so old timer here.
That's insane.
I wasn't on editorial. I was kind of there to help out kind of the ad team, provide a little support there.
Oh, weird.
So I started out the day like, okay, we need you to hang out with these GameStop employees and pass out issues of Game Informer at the entrance.
Okay.
So I did that for maybe 15 minutes. And then Billy Burkhammer was like, hey, can you go around and get press kits from all the booths inside of the show floor? And I was like, yep. I just left like a little smoky outline of myself and spent the whole day walking around. I had a little digital camera, so I was just like taking pictures of everything. And,
do you still have those photos?
Oh yeah, I went and looked through them all. I think there's a lot of stuff you'd enjoy. There's a statue of Shadow the Hedgehog.
Perfect time and place.
There's a picture of me with the Batman Begins Tumblr because that movie was about to come out.
Oh, weird.
Wow. There was a Matrix game that was being demoed where people could like sit in one of the Matrix chairs, where your heads get plugged in.
Oh, cool.
And there was like 6 or 7 monitors like put up so you could play the game, and it didn't look very comfortable. The guy that I took a picture of sitting there is just like, ugh. But,
in terms of like the Matrix fantasy.
Like the Matrix.
Yeah, it was a cool setup.
I like the idea of like, in the Matrix fantasy, there's a range of options. Number 1 on that list is sitting in that dirty ass chair and getting something stuck in the back of your head.
Gross dentist chair, yeah.
That's absurd.
But I did eventually get in trouble for not handing out magazines, but it was worth it.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Yeah, Marcus, I was thinking about E3 and like, I followed it for so many years as a fan, and then getting to go for the first year in 2011, and now after going so many times, it's like it's a tough thing to convey, and maybe like live streams I think help convey it a little more, but it's just like it's the mood. At least, you know, it's coming out from Minnesota and just going to LA, carrying a lot of video equipment on the hot LA streets, and then just like the excitement in the air, and it feels like a very satisfying payoff for knowing the industry well, because you're walking around those halls, especially that long hallway, and just scanning every face like, oh, that developer made this developer made this, oh, I'm walking by Hideo Kojima all of a sudden, this is a miracle. Like, it's just that weird intangible thing that is tough to convey in video, I think.
Yeah, it's I think everyone agrees that like before you go to one, like it's always felt like video game Willy Wonka's factory.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, like this is where all the magic happens. But you know, like you can't just go. You need a golden ticket to get in. And like the golden ticket is being in industry somehow. And that was also like always my bucket list thing. It's like, oh, I you know, watching every year and reading about it in Game Informer and other magazines. Like, oh my God, how do you get in? Like, how do I get to that? And then, you know, eventually I was fortunate enough to go. And yeah, it's overwhelming, especially for me, because like so I went 2016, which was the last industry only event. They started opening up to the fans in 2017. So I got it. I was happy. I'm glad I got to go to like the last of like E3 of old.
Yeah.
And it was also my not only just my first E3, but it's also my first convention covering it as press, and it was also my first game convention in general. It was only the second.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it was like, all right. It was very much like you gonna learn today kind of thing. I'm like, all right, here you go. You're gonna learn how to do this at like the biggest event in the year. Figure it out. Good luck.
Was it hard to cover?
I mean, thankfully, like the years that I went, I was with Jack Gardner and Extra Life.
Yeah.
Which, you know, shout out to her because she helped me a lot with getting my feet wet with that stuff. But that first year, you know, figuring out how to do what, you know, you guys did pretty much and how to do it well. Like, you know, like a lot of mistakes. Like that first year I brought like my bag with like my relatively heavy laptop and just carried that around. I was like, well, I got to type everywhere, right? That's how you do this, right? And actually, Jeff, you're the reason actually you helped me out, because I remember bumping into you on the show floor, and this was like a couple months or whatever after my internship. So I went up to you and I said hi, and you were playing something, and we chatted for a bit. And I noticed that you had like a little like hand-sized notebook that you were using to take notes. And I remember just glancing at that and then just having this epiphany, like, that's such a good idea. Like, why am I
a notebook for notes?
Why am I carrying this heavy-ass thing around? Because before I would have to like sit down and like find a little random spot in the Concourse Hall and find like an outlet and then like, oh, I got to write this thing up real quick that I just saw. And I would just be sitting there, people like trying to step over my stupid legs and stuff. Like at one point, like Reiner walked by and just kind of looked at me like, oh, it's that intern guy. What's he doing sitting there?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, literally every year since then, every convention I've done, I've got like a little notebook that I keep in my little back pocket because of you. So thank you for that.
There you go.
Very smart. How did you learn to improve the covering of E3, Jeff, over all your years?
Huh?
How'd you learn to improve your coverage of E3? Like what'd you learn along the way that works and doesn't work?
Well, it may have been more specific for us at GI, but I think it was the not trying to write up absolutely everything that you see.
Yeah.
And just
yes,
being more selective, and then at some point in the years just kind of taking the time to also go see the things that you're excited about and coming up with another way to cover those things. Right.
Yeah. It's that weird temptation, I think, for, you know, throughout my first couple of years, like, oh, we got to do a video preview on everything. Or, you know, if you're a writer, it's like, we need to write all these stories. And you realize they're just being bumped off the main page or bumped down the Twitter feed immediately. Like, you need to swing a little bit bigger and have an interesting headline, even if it's like a jokey headline. Just like try and make something memorable that stands out. And so, yeah, that's definitely a bizarre trend over time of just hopefully getting smarter and smarter with that. And then I guess it was like, well, I guess even like the first year that I went to E3, so it was 2011, I was like, oh, I'm going to try and take advantage of this opportunity because all these developers are going to be here. Wouldn't it be cool to have like developers interview each other one-on-one? And so I lined up an interview one-on-one between Notch, who who was cool at the time, and Todd Howard, because I'd gone on the Skyrim cover story trips. Like, oh, okay, I know Bethesda, I know Todd Howard a little bit. Like, this is doable. And so lined up this one-on-one interview between them, filmed it. You can find it on the Game Informer's YouTube channel. And it became clear very quickly that something was lost in the communication along the way, and that Todd Howard did not know that this was going to be a like, hey, Todd, this is your chance to interview the creator of Minecraft. He thought that, it was going to be moderated by me or somebody else from Game Informer, even though I went back and double checked. I was very clear that this is a weird video and it's going to be one-on-one. And so it's a little bit uncomfortable, but still fun to see those two talking. Like, it was fun to have Notch talking about, like, how he would role play Oblivion and how into Oblivion he got and stuff like that. And then there eventually was like that weird Skyrim pack-in for Minecraft that I'm sure wasn't a result of this discussion, but still fun that, like, oh, they came back together again. And then also came back together again when Bethesda sued Mojang for the Scrolls video game they were developing. It's a long story, but I'm really happy that, all the years I went to E3, I tried to have that, like, developer on developer interaction, like every year that rolled around, trying to line up new ones. And then eventually it just grew into hosting the Game Informer Show podcast there. And then, like, okay, trying to find like a corner of the convention center where we can film this long form discussion is impractical. Let's just get a place that we can bring developers to and then just make it a podcast instead of this edited video that goes up a week later or something like that,
Just talking about that, have you guys ever had any like really awkward interactions with either a developer or a personality that you were a fan of or knew of? So I feel like it's kind of like a mandatory thing that happens at some point.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of that. It's normally like, let's see, I'm trying to remember. There was one year where I forget who I was with. I was with some other reporter that I didn't know too well. And we're at a party and Suda51 was there. And just like maybe 4 months before that or something like that, I was in Japan and we went to Grasshopper and I interviewed Suda. Dan Reichert interviewed him about wrestling and it was bizarre, but that video is also up on Game Informer's YouTube channel. And so the reporter that I was with was a huge Suda51 fan. And I genuinely was enough of a turd where I was like, oh yeah? And like he was walking by and I'm like, hey, get ready for this. And I was like, hey, Suda, good to see you. Because he speaks like a little bit English. And Suda had no memory of me, obviously, no clue who I was. It's like, okay. And he just like kept on walking. He's like, all right, well, I tried to be a cool big shot and be like, I know Suda on a first name basis. Like, he doesn't know who the hell I am. Just some idiot white guy that went to his studio for 4 hours. Like,
I had something like that. Actually, my first E3, the first and only time I've met Greg Miller, I saw him at GameSpot's stage earlier in the day doing Greg Miller stuff. And I watched him for a bit. I was like, oh, cool. And then a couple hours later, I saw him on like one of the concourse hallways. And it was weirdly empty. It was just us two coming at each other. And I was like, I see him coming. And I'm like, in my head, like, oh my God, it's Greg Miller. I should say hi. But I kept like, no, I shouldn't. Like looking at my feet, looking at him, looking at my feet, looking at him. And I was like, no, I'm going to say hi. So unfortunately, by the time I decided this, he had just kind of passed me. So like I had to like turn around and be like, oh, hey. And then this is like, and in my mind, this is already a disaster because now he has to stop and turn around to see who the stranger is that's yelling at him. Like it was basically like an Elder Scrolls game, like when an NPC talks to you and they do that terrifying, jarring, like zoom in. Yeah, like like basically I Oblivioned Greg Miller, and he's just like, what? Hi, and I'm like, oh hi, like I just started stumbling, like it all just poured out, like oh. Like, I saw you on GameSpot's thing earlier, great job, man, like something like that, something really dumb. And the whole time he's just looking at me, like raising an eyebrow, like he's trying to figure out who I am. And then eventually he goes, oh, I didn't know you were there. I'm so sorry. It's good to see you. And then that throws me off. So I'm like, what? Like, does he think that he knows me?
Right. Is it playing it safe?
And I think in his head, he assumed that he should know me and was going through like his database of people trying to be like, who is this guy? Like, I think I'm supposed to know this guy, and was maybe playing it off. So then we're just kind of like staring at each other for about like 3 seconds, just looking like what's happening here? Until eventually it's just like, can I get a picture of you? And he's like, yeah. And then we just took a really quick selfie that I still have. And then we went about our lives and pretended that never happened.
That's perfect. I'm trying to think of like embarrassing stuff. I remember, was it 2013? I lined up Greg Kasavin from Supergiant. And I was like, hey, which developer would you like to talk to? Because that's normally how those like one-on-one developer things started. I was just chose somebody that I knew a little bit and said like, hey, who do you want to talk to? Because maybe we can line it up. And he's like, oh, I want to talk to Richard Garriott about Ultima. I was like, okay, yeah, totally doable, I guess. And we managed to line up the interview. And so it's just one-on-one in this little side room at the convention center. And then Felicia Day came with Greg as well to meet Richard Garriott and talk about Ultima. And so I was manning 2 cameras, and one of them is what's called a monopod. So it's just like one pole, but it's got like little feet on the bottom. And so I was bouncing back and forth, just like changing where the 2 cameras are at, just changing the camera angles. And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, there's little feet on this monopod. I think I can let this stand. So I just let it balance there precariously and then went to go adjust the other camera. And then in the middle of their interview, the camera just smashes into the ground. Oh. They are thrown off like, oh my God, is your camera okay? Is the interview still going on? What happened? I just felt like the biggest rookie idiot in front of these 3, industry icons. Just being like, oh, sorry, I thought it would stand up on its own. I don't know. Stupid.
Oh, man.
Jeff, do you have a favorite developer experience or just defining moment of E3?
I guess I didn't geek out a ton by, with the interviews that I did, but I did, I interviewed the creator of Metroid.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was kind of, that was the one point where I was like, this is super cool. Like, I'm happy that I'm interviewing this guy, and I've been such a fan. And then I told him, I asked him if he was ever going to make a 2D Metroid, and he was like, well, if the fans want it. And I was like, I want it. Please make it for me.
He said, Eureka.
Yeah, but just, I mean, and then some of my favorite ones were just interviewing smaller indie developers because they don't do, a ton of interviews all the time, and they're just so much more passionate. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. I guess everyone's passionate about the games that they're making, but I've had some really good. They're always grateful for the coverage, and they're always super passionate to just talk to you more than the bullet points that a publisher gave them to hit every time. And so,
yeah, and it's just like a good opportunity, I think, for indie developers to connect to other developers. Like, Charles, were there a lot of Microsoft indies hanging out together?
Yeah, so there were actually there was like the time before the show opened. We had like a little bit of time to troubleshoot our setup, which we had to do. But also we had some time to like go out and try out some of the other games, and Bleeding Edge was being like showcased there.
Oh yeah.
I didn't actually get a chance to play Bleeding Edge there because there was always a long line for people trying to play it. But one of the lead character artists came over to the HyperDot booth and started playing, and then we started just like talking and like conversing. I was like, wait, again, just like these are like scenarios that I'm on YouTube watching somebody watch or like do this interview, or like, yeah, I'm watching Ben do an interview to some other developer and stuff. But then in the moment, I realized that I'm actually like talking to people who are have been part of games that I've like extremely enjoyed or have like had a huge impact in like gaming and stuff. And like that was one of the moments where I was like, oh my, what? Yeah, but yeah, and then afterwards he was like, oh yeah, great game, I really like it. I was like, oh thanks. And then of course we have to remember that there's a pin economy, and there was a Bleeding Edge pin, and I got a Bleeding Edge pin.
Hell yeah, that thing's worth as much as gold these days. The future is going to come down to Bleeding Edge pins.
I find it funny, like listening to all these and kind of reminiscing myself. Just wondering, like, will E3 ever like handshakes and shoulder to shoulder crowds and giving out pins, like just like thinking like how strange that is to hear now. You guys getting that vibe?
Yeah, well, PAX West is still hasn't canceled, so you can look forward to that in August or whatever, but there's no way it's not going to be canceled, right? I mean, go ahead, Marcus.
No, I was going to say, right, like, like things have changed so fast, so quickly that, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's from the before times. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that like my year of dreams happened last year. Where I was able to go to and attend all these like conferences and events that, again, I've been watching online and whatnot, or watching on broadcast TV back when like G4 TV was.
Oh yeah.
But like being able to attend that, and then now trying to think in the future, like what does that look like? Like, is there going to be another like press conference event thing that will happen? I don't know.
Well, I mean,
it depends on whether or not E3 exists.
I mean, it's that confusing thing of like, oh, EA. I think it's EA. Yeah, because I think Ubisoft is like July now, but EA is still lined up for around that window of doing some streams. So we'll kind of have that. In effect, it's just going to be that bizarre thing where everybody's stretched out and doing their streams at different times. Who knows when Sony is going to roll around at this point? And it's just like you miss having that tentpole of like, waking up that morning in the hotel and knowing like I'm going to watch 4 press conferences today and I'm going to learn about dozens and dozens and dozens of new games. And it's just as exciting as, the gaming industry can get. And that's the part that is just a bummer. But Brian, if we had to predict, I don't think E3 is coming back. I think this year people are going to learn that we don't need it. I don't know why they would.
I'm having a lot of trouble. Like a lot of the bigger companies were kind of pulling out. Like, you know what? We can do our own stream or event and at any time we want and still get the eyeballs.
Right.
I think a lot of fans are kind of mourning that, like you were saying, like people would be like, oh, it's E3 week. I'm going to take some days off work and just watch streams all day and read previews and watch videos. And, like now it's like, okay, now I got to keep track of like 20 different streaming events. And like, there's a different one for each game, even though it's all one, even like one publisher, like may just do separate events for each big tentpole game they have. And like, I think, a decent amount of stuff can fall through the cracks. People like, oh yeah, I heard there was a new demo for this or a new video for that. And I better get around to watching it. And then, the time goes by and you just have forgotten to even look at it. Whereas if it was an E3 where you're like, all right, I'm kicking up my feet and letting this all wash over me for 3 days. It's going to be strange not to have that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, the press conference when the Xbox One and PS4, like the epic day that was.
Yes.
Where it was like Microsoft didn't go so hot in the beginning of the day, and then Sony just like wrecking shop. And I remember that was like one of the first years, like one of the only years that I watched it with people that were not my family, where I like had friends over and we were just watching all of these streams and stuff. And I flipped out. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're doing this.
That was like the wrestling show E3.
Oh, yeah.
It was like Microsoft were the heels going like, boo, always online, $500, no way. Then Sony babyface comes in like, hey, this is $100 cheaper. And it's you could play used games and everyone's like chanting Sony in the crowd.
And then the crowd becomes the Vince McMahon gif, I think is the way that worked. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yep. Falling on his chair.
Exactly.
I love the, was it Adam Boys? And the like, this is how you let a friend borrow a game. And they were just like, here you go.
Yep.
That was genius.
That was like the cherry on top of that whole thing.
Yeah, it's still like one of the most highest viewed videos on PlayStation's YouTube channel. It's just bizarre. Flaming Queso wrote in saying that was his favorite moment, and asking if it's the biggest moment in terms of like E3 mic drop rivalry. I mean, certainly in my era, I'm there might be some bigger ones back in the day. Maybe Andy McNamara on the Game Informer show could let us know, or somebody that's been to every E3. But that's certainly the go-to moment now when I think about momentous E3 moments.
Yeah, I think the only thing that kind of like rivals that maybe was it the first E3 that the like when the Saturn surprise launch and then the Sony conference, the guy just went up there and was like, oh, it's like $100 cheaper, and just walked off. That was the whole presentation.
I wish, honestly, I would pay for a subscription service that's just every E3 press conference ever. Just like the highest quality.
E3 network.
Honestly, will somebody start that, please? Because you can go back and it gets pretty grainy pretty fast. It'll be like, okay, we have like 2007, but it looks like it's shot through some sort of hole punctured in a tin can, projecting onto a wall behind it on GameSpot's YouTube channel. It's like there's no great avenue for seeing these old things, and it sucks. Or it's just like clips, but I just want the long form, even if it's boring ass slideshow. I think that stuff is fun to look back at.
Yeah, I've had that even like times I've like written like E3 lists and trying like the further back you get, you're trying to find footage for this thing that you've heard about.
Yeah.
And you realize, and I remember being surprised, like no one has footage of this. Like, were we just not doing this back then? Like, nobody thought it'd be a good idea to record this?
It was really strange to think about now. Like, there was a time when they didn't necessarily record E3 press conferences. They were literal press conferences where you just kind of sit there with your notebook and you're like, okay, I'm taking all this in and writing it down. At the time, when we were mostly focused on print at Game Informer, we would all be in this big row together and just be like, oh, wow. And Matt Cotto and Matt Helgeson were like the news/features guys. So they were the ones that like really had to pay attention and like write about it later. But it's like, oh, those two guys have it like every major news conference. And it's weird. Like people would just get like write-ups. Like that's how they would find out what happened at these press conferences. Like the live stream changed everything completely because people don't have to necessarily go through a middleman to find out what's going on at these things. Or think about like, oh, here's a photograph in a magazine like weeks later of, what happened at this press conference. Or it's crazy how much it's kind of changed coverage and how people consume E3.
And it's so weird that like, as the tech has evolved, as I think just the intelligence of coverage, figuring out what the community wants has evolved, I feel like, the last couple of years has been pretty good about like, hey, if you want to experience E3 without going there are enough live streams and show floor tours to get you covered. And then, not so much. The fact that like it ends just when it was at a point where not only the public could go, but then everybody at home could experience it in a pretty interesting way and satisfying way overall. Hey, Brian, do you want to turn down your mic just a little bit? It's just peaking a little bit. But also,
sure.
Kyle Hilliard wrote in, here are his stories. He says, I once looked all over E3 for a Band-Aid when Brian cut himself and was bleeding. Do you remember this, Brian?
What year was that?
That was the year you bled all over the show floor, apparently.
Cutting my finger. That's vaguely familiar.
Oh boy.
I'm really shoot. Yeah. I remember that's just coming back. Like I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. And he says, from that trip forward, I always get Band-Aids in my shoulder bag. Also, I helped Hansen wipe bird poop off his head one year. Apparently, I think I was like heading into the convention center and a bird pooped on my head or something. You see, this is the things that E3 is so hectic, you don't even recall bleeding to death or being covered in bird feces. It's all just part of the game. Also, I completely forgot, thinking about like 2011, I think it was, like the first E3. Remember going to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, which is incredible there in LA. And we went with like Kim Swift. Do you remember that? Like designer of Portal. And it was like one of those first big moments of being at an event like E3 and it's like, oh, we just get to eat chicken and waffles with the designer of Portal? Like, this is the best day ever.
Yeah, that was nuts. Yeah, I remember that was a great Game Informer tradition. And just like the first day, stuff yourself as much as possible and feel like total crap to get things going. But it was cool, like the opportunity. You never know, like, I don't know if I was ever the person that was like, hey, I invited along this super awesome creator, but I always appreciated when people did that were better at networking and cooler. But it was cool just to be able to like just talk to them like a normal person and not in like, all right, we're in a sweaty booth. I'm interviewing you about Portal or was it Quantum Conundrum? Is that what she was?
Oh,
I think she was promoting that.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
yeah. That game that some people definitely played. Yeah, it's like that kind of hangout vibe. Hopefully we got it across in kind of the later years with the Game Informer show, live streams and podcasts out there of having devs kind of more relaxed. We had a fridge full of beer, trying to get them to relax a little bit and forget they're on camera. But I think like Giant Bomb is definitely, they're the masters of getting that across. And like it felt very cool once Dan started at Giant Bomb and he's like, oh, just come on by. It's great. You can just come hang out at the Giant Bomb live stream. It's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm sitting at the cool kid table at high school. This is so satisfying for once in my life to be in the crowd at least while this is going on. But I'm trying to think like what other coverage stands out for like before the years that you were going, Charles, like G4, but then do you have other memorable moments of just watching the coverage of E3?
Yeah, there was, well, I guess there was multiple times where like me and my brother would be sitting there just watching like, G4 or I guess the next big-ish streaming thing that we did watch was like IGN was breaking a lot of like doing videos and breaking out those.
Yeah.
So we would watch a lot of those and just like consuming all of that stuff. One year, our cousin came over and we were watching it after playing, or actually no, it was we were playing Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, and then we were like, all right, it's time to switch over to play or watch E3 stuff. Crystal Chronicles was already old at this point, so it wasn't like, oh yes, we're gonna watch. Yeah, no, it wasn't that. But I remember, just trying to consume all of these different things, and I remember particularly the launch, or actually the E3 where the PS3 and the 360 were becoming a thing,
right?
And like the graphical difference between the stuff that I was watching on G4 earlier that day or earlier that week, where it was like, oh yeah, it looks like an Xbox original game, and then you fast forward to, oh, this is what an Xbox 360 game looks like. Whoa, like it was just like, this is insane. And that like jump and leap in like graphics and technology and the things that like people were able to make doing that. I remember like watching all of the coverage and just trying to like consume it all.
Just
great.
Let me break the coverage. Yeah, I mean the console reveals are definitely special. Like 2011 was fun because that was the Wii U reveal E3, and I was live streaming it for Game Informer, not doing any reactions or anything fun, but just like sitting in like the bunker of that building and just like taking video signals and trying to broadcast it out. What a weird time. Because I had to go to every press conference and just sprint, and then every setup was different. You're always in some weird part of the building in the basement or something. It's like, okay, well, in this one, we have this video signal. Do you happen to have this adapter? It was just a nightmare. Jason Astriker did it the next year, which was very sweet of him to take that blow. But I remember like that Nintendo one, it was so fun because like the big Wii U reveal, being surrounded by like in the basement there, because there's a lot of Nintendo PR, like Andrew Kelly was there. And I remember as we're getting set up, I was talking to somebody about the Game Boy game called X, which like Dylan Cuthbert worked on before Star Fox and stuff. It's like this pseudo 3D Game Boy game called X. And I couldn't remember the name of it. I'm like, oh, I remember they did some weird 3D thing on the Game Boy. And then Bill Trinan, like Miyamoto's translator and a huge face over there at Treehouse, like he poked his head in the door and he's like, hey, I overheard you guys from the green room next door. Just want to let you know you're thinking of the game X. I was like, oh, thank you, Bill Trinan. Like, what a treat. But then just like being surrounded by Nintendo as they reveal the name Wii U and given that like, wow, okay. I remember my first instinct was like shock that they kept it secret. Like I really thought that type of name would have been leaked, and it didn't.
That was such a 2011. I'll always like watching that Wii U reveal. I was in game design college at the time, so we would watch it either during class because it would air during the morning, so we would just neglect all our work to just watch the conferences, or back at like a friend's apartment. So these like super hardcore gamers, we all know what's going on, and we were all just collectively confused at the Wii U. Like when they first showed it, we're like, okay, we know this is a successor console. Like, okay, we all know that, right? But then we were still like, is it an attachment for the Wii? Are we wrong? Were we like, where's the box? I don't see it. And like, they're not showing it, are they?
Oh, right.
Yeah. It's like, I think, and then like, we had this thing where like, I think I see it way in the back there. You see that little blue light? I think that might be it. And we were just like debating, like, no, that's not it. That can't be it. That's something else.
Yeah, I remember, speaking of Crystal Chronicles, when the Wii U was like announced, me and my brother looked at each other like, we can play Crystal Chronicles. We can have like 4 of these hooked up to the Wii U, and then we can play. That would be awesome, because this is back when they were like really ambiguous with the number of game pads that can be attached.
Well, yeah,
and they're like, oh, this is gonna be great.
So many unrealized dreams. So like, oh man, Metroid, the map being down there, that's gonna be great.
Oh my god, it was so weird. And like all the weird tech demos was like, okay, you're in like a Japanese garden flying around, but the gamepad thing, I forgot about that because it was like the outcry, and the big question is like, can we have multiple gamepads? And everyone was screaming, we need multiple gamepads for the Wii U. And then at some point, Reggie in an interview was like, yeah, it supports it now. We can do it. And everyone's like, hey, good. And then it just, nobody ever tried. Nobody ever asked. There was never any game that would possibly line that up. But I remember that was a weird one because Game Informer broke the news story before that E3. Do you guys remember this? About like Nintendo's going to reveal their HD console here?
Right. I do remember that, yeah.
That was a weird one. Being somewhat on the inside of that track and getting some idea of like, okay, it seems like it's going to happen, but obviously we didn't know that it was going to be the Wii U. It was just kind of like, I think even probably that news story just called it like, oh, the HD version of the Wii or whatever the hell.
Did we ever get that? I'm sorry. Did we ever get that golf game? Remember when they showed it at E3 where the guy was standing over the gamepad and hit it? Did that ever happen?
I think it's like, God, is that in Wii Play? Or Wii Sports HD?
So like a Wii Sports 2 or something? Or?
But was it like that? Or was it just a different
don't
thing?
know.
I remember watching that years later. I was like, wait, we never got that. And I remember looking at that at the time, like, oh, that's actually kind of cool.
I saw our dear friends over at Game Explain, who are just awesome for covering Nintendo stuff. They posted a video recently about how the big payoff from the 2011, or the big tease from 2011 has finally been paid off, because in that Wii U video, they showed people playing, was it like Go or some Othello, like some game with like black and white pieces, and they're like, all right, game's over, and they like flipped up the gamepad and all the pieces slid off. And apparently Nintendo never released that game for the Wii U in any way. But now, actually this week, they're releasing that Clubhouse games, which has like 50 or 51 or whatever, like tabletop games in there. And one of them is Othello, and Game Explain tested it, and you can in fact lift up the Switch in handheld mode and all the pieces slide off. So
there you go.
they made a video with just them screaming about finally!
Okay, so we need the golf game on Switch so I could put my Switch on the ground.
Yep.
And hit the ball.
It's everything we've ever hoped for. Yeah.
The idea that you could just be playing that Othello game and then be like, okay, let's move over to this table or whatever, and you pick it up and they all slide off.
You idiot!
What's the point of it?
No, it's like tabletop.
Too real. Too real. You guys think it would have made that much of a difference if they just would have called it the Wii 2?
Like,
honestly,
would that have changed it?
Yeah, because as someone that worked at GameStop during the Wii U's life cycle, I cannot tell you how many times I had to explain to people what that thing was and that it was not a Wii attachment. Like every time trying to sell the Wii U, everyone came out like, it was either, is this a sequel or is this an add-on? And also what's the deal with the gamepad? And both times it was like, well, it's the follow-up to Wii. Well, why would you use the gamepad? Like, well, it shows another screen there, and that's it. It's just the screen that you see on your TV. It's just there twice.
But you'll still need your Wiimotes, so don't lose them, or the condoms, and you still need the sensor for some
games. And don't move like further than 6 feet. Like, oh, I can go to my bedroom. Like, how close is your bedroom? Do you have a studio apartment? Then maybe, yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Wii U recently because I brought it over to my girlfriend's place. I forgot just how many stupid things are frustrating with that system. About like, oh man, I remember I bought so many amazing retro games through the eShop on the Wii, and so then going to the Wii menu, it's like, oh no, you need to actually switch to the Wiimote in order to navigate the Wii retro console menu. It's just like so many of those stupid things. It's like, okay, and then I can't use the gamepad to play these either. I need to hook up the Pro controller for the Wii. It's just like wave after wave of frustration trying to play the thing. Although a lot of those games still hold up damn well. I still am having a great time when I'm actually in a game playing it.
Does it feel like holding a Game Gear?
Yes, exactly the way it should be. Which, by the way, I just got my my old Game Gear. I went out to my parents' place this weekend and picked it up, and it turns out it barely stays on. I turn it on, and it's on for like a second, and then just dies. So it's just going to be a prop now. And hey, did you see they announced the Game Gear Micro?
I was going to bring that up. Like, how can you even see that screen? It's so small.
Yeah, like the screen on the original Game Gear was tiny.
Yeah, it's the only way to make it look good. If you just keep shrinking the Game Gear graphics, eventually it's like, okay, this is doable now.
I think a lot of people would just be like, I got to do it. But the choice, like, I love that they did many colors, but the choice to only put 4 games on each color, and split them up between the 4 different consoles.
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Insane to me.
Oh my
That's
God.
what
I didn't know
Twitter.
that.
That's what I saw on Twitter.
Oh,
Each color has four games, and they don't overlap at all.
Oh, gross.
That's going to guarantee, like, one of those are going to be, like, the super rare one. Like, do you got the yellow one that has this game?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Did they announce that it's coming to the States?
I think it's just Japan. At least that's what I saw. I
Okay.
think.
God, I need that thing. It's so clunky and weird. But going through my old games for Game Gear this weekend, it's like, oh, I need to play Bart versus the World on Game Gear, specifically Game Gear. I love that stupid thing. Other E3 highlights that we haven't mentioned from anybody?
The hardest I've ever laughed watching a press conference was going back to 2011 was that Mr. Caffeine thing. at
Oh my
Ubisoft.
God.
Like, I remember having friends over and we just could not handle it. Like every time they're like, doodle, like we just lost it. And we're like, he's got to stop eventually, right? Like he's going to kind of read the room because no one's reacting to this in a positive way at all. And he just kept going. Like, I mean, props to the commitment for it. Like he didn't bat an eyelid, but it was just like painful and hilarious. And I don't even remember what they showed at that press conference because I just remember him.
God, I mean, do you think he felt good about it? Do you think like his head hit the pillow that night? He's talking to his wife, like, you wouldn't believe I nailed it today. Oh man, I finally got to have the payoff for all those years of wanting to do stand-up comedy.
They ate it up. What are you guys' favorite like awkward E3 moments? I'm having a debate between I was there for the $599 PS3 and the Ridge Racer crickets. Like, it is
it's so good.
so funny. Everyone's just kind of like looking at each other like, what?
I mean, I think of, just from my era, like the Wonder Book demo on the PlayStation stage that lasted forever and technically was barely functioning. It's just those weird moments where you just realize like, it's going on way too long. Or like when Ubisoft invited James Cameron on stage to talk about Avatar, and it turns out James Cameron likes to talk about Avatar, and it was like 20 minutes of him blathering on about Avatar. Oh my God, man.
The 2010 Microsoft, I think that was the Connect show.
The white ponchos in the Cirque du Soleil.
I actually remember. I think I remember seeing like in the issues of GI, like Tim and somebody else wearing those ponchos and not being happy about it.
Brian, were you and me there together for that?
Yes.
Did you guys rock the ponchos?
We had to hand them over, and it's just like, what do you want me to do with this? What is this?
Yeah, and I think that was one of my first E3s, and I remember that was such a surreal show to go to, and then I got a terrible migraine from it, and we went back from the hotel and still had to write it up, and I wrote it as just kind of like a Jack Kerouac, what did I witness at this thing? and then I tried to get a salad from the hotel, and then I just threw it up all night. And,
oh God.
And Nick Aarons was my roommate, and I felt so bad for him because I came out after like the third time being in the bathroom. He was just like, you all right there, bud? I was like,
quite a visceral reaction to the presentation. But.
Yes, and that was the perfect reaction to that press conference.
Yeah, because that was the suit of foot thing, right? And wasn't that the Milo, that really awkward, weird Milo demo?
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. God. Did you like the social aspect of hanging out at E3, Jeff? Like, when you think of E3, what do you think of? Is it sitting at the press conferences, or is it like getting donuts in the morning outside the hotel?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the few kind of trips that we used to do at GI where, at least in the early days, everyone went and you got to spend time with everyone out. And it was, I mean, it was busy, but it wasn't as, high pressure as like a cover story or something. So you did get to have those times where everyone's just kind of hanging out and exploring the city a little and having fun.
Yeah.
And even in when we were crammed into that little booth covering the press conferences, that was always the nice part of it too, is that at least you were surrounded by your coworkers and everyone was reacting to the announcements and stuff together.
Bummer we weren't streaming that stuff or covering that stuff more, because that was the fun. It's just like listening to Jeff Cork make jokes. Like the hardest I ever laughed at a press conference at E3 was we've told this story before, but was it 2013 where there was the Dark Sorcerer demo from Quantic Dream? And we're watching that at the PlayStation press conference, all in that little booth. And it's just like a goblin, like, oh, my lord, oh, you must use this. And it was before like the twist was revealing that it was like, a Hollywood set that they were filming and stuff. So everybody just thought that it was genuinely this fantasy game with just like the stupidest dialogue imaginable from Quantic Dream. And Jeff Cork just put his head in his hands and he goes, what are you idiots doing? It's lame. It's like the idea of like the entire industry coming down to this. And Jeff Cork's like, no more. I can't stand for this crap any longer.
Jeff Cork had the best E3 morning ritual, which was to always hit up IHOP nice and early and get the biggest pile of food possible so that you wouldn't need to eat lunch or dinner. You'd be covered all day and it didn't matter. You wouldn't have to like worry about getting some Gardettos at somebody's booth or something. Like you were just covered all day long.
That is pretty smart. It is that weird thing where you're just rushing and then realize, like, oh crap, I haven't had any food. And there are a lot of snobs in there that are too good for that convention center pizza. I'm a defender. I had that convention center pizza every day throughout all of E3. A fine time, a fine greasy time, but good. And then you get the Gatorade on your way out. It's the best.
Yeah, it's just the tough part is so like getting in line when there's not everyone else like mobbing it at like noon or 1 or like between like major press conferences. Like timing that out was so key.
Yeah.
I learned real quick after the first year that like the breakfast is the only thing I'm gonna eat today until about like 9 o'clock at night. So I actually did the Jeff Cork thing too, where at the hotel I would stay at, I would go down to the little restaurant and buy this really huge omelet. So we always stayed at the same place every year. And it was this like relatively expensive omelet, but it was worth it because it always filled me up and it would last me the whole show. And that just became kind of like a semi-ritual with me when I could afford it. So Jeff is on to something.
Yeah. He's a
nice
pack mule at that point. I think one of the most surreal moments at E3 was barely related to E3, but we were in LA for the first year. So it was 2011. So I hadn't been a Game Informer that long. And then like the U-Star team reached out and said like, hey, do you want to come to the after party for the MTV Movie Awards and interview Jason Sudeikis about U-Star, which is like the weird, like you're in the movies kind of pre-Connect, or maybe, I guess it was using Connect. It's just a mess. And so it's that weird thing of like, yeah, I guess we'll go shoot an interview with Jason Sudeikis. And so Annette Gonzalez and I went to go shoot this thing, and it was just bizarre because we were at the MTV Movie Awards after party in 2011. And so just like, okay, here, have some drinks at this bar. And then you look around, it's like, I remember I lost my mind when I walked in and like Tim Meadows was at the bar, like having a drink. I'm like, Tim Meadows, like, what is this? And so we were such nerds that we wrote down in our phones all the celebrities that were there so that we wouldn't forget them. So I still have like that note in my phone. And I looked at it and it's like Andy Samberg, Joel McHale, Emma Watson, Jake Gyllenhaal, Charlie Day, Reese Witherspoon. And then I wrote down, quote, redhead from Zombieland, which it turns out was Emma Stone. But at the time I was like, that one redheaded lady from Zombieland, I don't know her name, but I guess we're drinking with her. It was just absolutely bizarre. And then shooting the interview with Jason Sudeikis, it just became clear that like the U-Star folks didn't want to hire a video team on their own to shoot this like promotional U-Star thing. So they just opened it up to press, and we were maybe the only ones idiotic enough to bite. And so it was just like this weird thing where at a certain point then they were like directing us and directing Jason for what he should say about U-Star. And it's like, we'll just do an interview on our own. We're good. And they're like, oh, you need to put the camera over here. And it was like literally having to argue with these people like, no, we're good. The camera's going to go here. We're going to talk about these things. We're good. And I remember afterwards Annette was like, I don't know how the hell you did that. The idea of like not only directing the U-Star devs, but like directing Jason Sudeikis seems impossible. But it was great and lovely. In that video you can watch as well. It's just a lot of bizarre footage of Jason Sudeikis where he was in like, he was playing U-Star and then he was in Jersey Shore. It's just a weird moment in time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, did you guys meet a lot of like non-gaming celebrities like on the floor or anything besides like in general, or see anybody that you're like, oh my god?
I didn't remember this, but apparently I sent a picture to my mom because she brought it up years later about how we're best friends. But I sent a picture to my mom of Snoop Dogg playing Rage on the show floor. Because she's like, oh, you and Snoop Dogg are best friends. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you met him. I'm like, I have never met Snoop Dogg. And it's like, it turns out I just took a photo of him playing this game or something. Or I think of like,
she's like, I've got evidence.
Yeah. Exactly. I remember like we did a show floor tour one time with Dan Reichert, and Nick Swartzen, the comedian, was like walking on the show floor. So we like ran over and filmed a quick segment with him, and he was friendly. I don't know.
Very cool. I ran into Kenny Omega 3 times last year.
Wow, the wrestler. Very cool.
Yeah, it was cool. Like, and talked to him twice. Like, I ran into him at a restaurant, at like Shaquille O'Neal's restaurant by the Staples Center. Like, went in there, and he was coming out as we were going in, and I stopped him and said hi. And he was super nice. His shirt was about to explode off his huge body. And then saw him on the floor. He was actually cool. He was at the I don't know if it's Indiecade, I forgot, but it's like the little indie booth that was set up last year at E3 by Nintendo's area. He was in there hanging out for a bit, and talked to him again, got a picture with him. He kind of remembered me. I was like,
that's awesome, man.
And then saw him at a restaurant like the next day, and it became like a running joke with like Jack and our friends, like, is Marcus gonna run into Kenny Omega again today? Like, your best friend, Kenny Omega, right? Like, yeah, it's me and the cleaner.
Was he trying to be incognito at all, or was he just like full on Kenny Omega, like notice me mode?
I think he was full on, because I know he did he had a time slot with GameSpot. Like, they had like an outdoor like stage that they were having guests come on to do stuff, and I know he did like a Street Fighter thing for them.
Yeah.
So
it was like Street Fighter versus Xavier Woods or something. Right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because the New Day were there too. Like,
right.
I saw them wandering around too. I think, and then the year before, actually, I saw that was when they did the New Day versus the Elite at the Street Fighter tournament on the show floor at Capcom's booth. Like, I watched some of that, so I think it was like a continuation of that feud.
Yeah, I remember watching that event too, and it was this weird thing where not understanding wrestling or the world of wrestling politics or anything, but I remember it's like a weird moment where Kenny Omega and Xavier Woods then were like, you know, we did this together, and we know that it's not the most common thing, but we think that we're forging a new path and that we can be more open with wrestlers that can communicate. Brian, you know the wrestling world pretty damn well. Why is that a big deal that Kenny Omega and Xavier Woods were doing something together?
And different companies.
I see.
And they're good friends off camera, but there are certain rules that companies have where like they can't be on camera together. So you're probably, I don't know if you're probably there, but you probably saw footage of a giant bomb when they would like pop up, and like, you know, Kenny Omega would be like, hey guys, pipe down, I'm trying to sleep over here. And then he'd go away, and then Xavier would pop on and do something else. But they had a lot of fun playing around with that.
That was very weird. That was an idea that was hatched very quickly before that live stream. So I was like, especially not understanding the wrestling world, it's like, well, this is a weird bit, but I guess it's for somebody out there to understand why this is so silly that they can't be in the exact same shot at the exact same time.
Yeah, last year
with wrestling fans just love the more like weird insidery reference they can get, like the more they love it.
Yeah, it makes us cooler. It gives us our source of our power.
Before we get too far away from the celebrity thing, even though I didn't meet him, probably the craziest thing that I saw was the rock band Beatles press conference.
Oh,
which they have Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Yoko, and
George Harrison's wife.
I'm spacing on her name right now, but that was totally nuts, and I'll always remember that.
And I mean, Matt Miller was writing the cover story on Beatles Rock Band for Game Informer, so he got to interview Paul McCartney like before that, right?
Yeah, he was like, they were like, okay, show up like super early, so he was just like back there, like sitting on a crate forever, and like out of nowhere, apparently, they all start kind of showing up, and it's just like, oh my God, there's this guy, like all these crazy legends, and like, I'm sure he'd have some great stories about like the briefs and stuff before he talked to them, and like, what can you talk about? And then like, obviously he had to get stuff for his story too. So he had to like, with the very limited, like 5 minutes he had with each person, like trying to get usable quotes for his story was just
God,
sure so daunting.
Yeah. And like, I don't know when the last time you went back and watched that bit was. You can find it on YouTube, them talking about Beatles Rock Band on stage. And it's definitely, it feels like the type of thing of like, oh, we've told this thing 1,000 times. I know this is John Lamb, but I don't care. Oh, we've told this thing 1,000 times before. We've got it. We'll just go out on stage. We've got it. And so they just go out there being cool guys and then just don't really have a frame of reference of like what they're talking about or why. And they just think it's kind of fun to like, oh, let's just shoot the breeze. Ringo and Paul, here we are. And it's just like, it runs out of energy at about the 15-second mark, and then it's just uncomfortable for the rest of it. But it's like, who's going to tell them what to do? Of course they can do whatever they want. It's amazing they're there. Or like, you know.
We're all just in the audience like, we don't care what you talk about.
Yeah. Like, the
I remember seeing
here.
that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that being actively jealous because I'm a Beatles fan. I was like, that's like the holy grail right there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, like it was still fun being in the crowd last year at the Microsoft event when then Keanu Reeves came on stage. Like he did a better job of actually like playing up to the audience and like building hype and not just letting it be, oh my God, the celebrity, and then slowly realizing, oh, now we're stuck with a celebrity for an uncomfortable amount of time.
Yeah, I was like super fortunate enough to be in the audience when that happened, because we totally blinked and didn't realize that we had to ask and be like, hey, do you think that we can actually go to the press conference? So I think it was 30 minutes before the press conference, we were rushing down to get all our stuff, our ducks in a row. And then we finally got there. And then, yeah, that was just insane when he was like, you were breathtaking. Like,
It's so
you're
fun.
breathtaking. Yeah, and like having all of that and just being there in a press conference in a physical form was also just like a oddly emotional thing because again, the things that were on screen, but then like Ori came on the screen. I was like, wow, that's right. There is no space in between me and what the audience is seeing because I am in the audience. And it's like, wow, I was kind of getting a little bit like emotional and like a little choked up. I was like, this is me checking another thing off on a press conference.
Yeah. Also, people you don't understand how loud it is in those press conferences too. They blast it. So like, I think that's a huge part when people talk about, impactful game demos or trailers. It's because if you're in that crowd, it's like vibrating your organs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that reaction, Charles, because Microsoft was the first press conference I went to like in 2017. And funny enough, I'd went to everyone since then except for last year's. Like I was like, I don't really need to go to last year's. And then Keanu walked up and I was like, God damn it.
Yeah, as soon as they did the reveal from the trailer and it was like, oh my goodness, no. And then suddenly there were people like pointing and like, what? And then you just look and then, yeah, he walked on the stage.
Yeah, like I was like cursing myself. Like the one year I decided not to go to it.
Yeah.
But like, I remember hearing like from, I guess like, more experienced journalists and like sometimes they kind of are like a little jaded about like I don't really need to go to those things, it's more trouble than it's worth. And it's like, yeah, I guess I could see that, but like the times that I've been, like I was always like super happy to sit there because I would always watch that at home and be like, man, I want to be in the crowd when this huge game. Like I got, the last one I went to was when Cyberpunk was revealed and it was like that last second thing, like, oh, I guess this is over, we're getting up, and then that trailer starts and it like scared the hell out of everybody like in the theater. Like that hard cut was terrifying, like what's going on. And then seeing that pop on screen and everyone's losing their minds, like that energy is so infectious. And it's kind of like, that's one of the reasons why I love going to those events. It's kind of like a yearly reminder of why you love this stuff in the first place. Just being around everyone that's so enthusiastic about just the medium as a whole.
Yeah.
So
on the celebrity front, I think it was, God, I don't know what year it was, but there was some year where I kept seeing people on Twitter be like, holy crap, Steven Spielberg's on the show floor. Holy crap, Steven Spielberg's on the show floor. And that is my holy grail. I was like, I am desperate to meet Spielberg. And then I saw people, I think like Reiner came into the booth because like Game Informer had a little back area, right? Reiner came into the booth and be like, oh, I saw Spielberg walk into the EA booth. I was like, oh my God, I know the EA booth. I know there's only one exit to the EA booth. And so I just took off, like, forget editing, forget whatever the hell else I was doing. I sprinted to the EA booth and just stood by that exit. Because like he has to come out at some point. And I was there for around 40 minutes. And it's getting to the point of like, well, I feel pretty guilty for not getting work done or doing anything else. Hopefully Andy or Reiner don't yell at me for this. But then at a certain point, I'm like, I gotta call it off. Like he's not coming out of this tiny room. And then I had to go about and do the rest of my work without seeing Steven Spielberg, which really bummed me out. But I guess I got to like interview Miyamoto a couple times or whatever. So I guess it was cool.
Yeah. Oh.
Do you guys remember the insanity around that? Speaking of Cyberpunk, that demo in 2018, like everyone trying to get into that thing.
Yeah.
Like every time I passed that demo room, it was just crowded with people, and I was like, and myself, I was trying to get in there, like talking to PR people, like, come on, like if anyone cancels, can I get in? Can I get in? I wasn't able to get in. The one time I could, I had an appointment. Still walked away one of those statues though. Which is a whole other story.
Interesting.
But nothing nefarious. It was given to me.
Yeah, I was really
That's
lucky.
one of the things that I loved the most at Game Informer was that last day when we were running around giving out the game of the show like foam deals. Is when people would talk and be like, okay, we've got a couple hours before the show floor closes. What do I have to see? Like, what is the big thing? And people would always like give you like the 3 or 4, and you'd give people suggestions, and everyone would just kind of like scatter and try to like schmooze our way in and see some of the big, most talked about stuff. And usually it worked pretty well. Like usually we had success.
It helped to have the Game Informer name. Yeah. And like with that Cyberpunk one, that's a weird one too. It's like, okay, no way you can get in, completely booked. And then I saw the head of CD Projekt Red, like walking back and forth between a couple of rooms. And it's so gross, but it's like, that's stupid if I don't. So I went up to him and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I was at your studio in Warsaw for The Witcher 3 cover story with Game Informer. Hey, do you think I could squeeze in possibly? And he's like, yep, absolutely. And he brought us right in. He was super sweet. And I had Alex Grenling, friend of the show, a graphic designer who did a couple of Game Informer covers. Now he's at Bungie. And he was with me trying to get in as well. So I was like, all right, just hang on and don't ask questions. Here we go. And like, he didn't wonder who Alex was. So it was that nice thing of getting an extra +1 into that demo, which was, a super fun demo to watch because they were so eager to for feedback in 2018. Like they handed out like pens and notes, like any feedback whatsoever you can send us, please let us know. And I remember the build that we were watching was all messed up because they'd somehow they had 2 executables of Cyberpunk open and they couldn't figure out like why the audio was glitching and what was happening to their build. And they realized at a certain point, like even CD Projekt Red, the brilliant people that they are, like, oh, it turns out we just had 2 of these open at the same time. That's all that's going on. It's very fun.
You ever watch a lot of stuff, like any like demos like crash or go crazy that you kind of have to like, like be polite, like, oh, okay, like, because I remember I went to see Telltale's Batman, the first season when they were showing that off,
right?
With Jack, and they're running through like the opening like 30 minutes or so of that first episode, and like about halfway through it, the demo just completely just crashed, and the guys, the poor PR guy's like, oh my God, like, I'm sorry, we're going to get this back up. So we're sitting there waiting. And like Jack and I, thankfully, like we had enough of a gap in our schedule. Like, oh, we can wait. And he's like, I'm so sorry. We have to start it over because, it didn't like save or anything. So you're going to have to watch all these cutscenes. At the beginning, it's a lot of cutscenes before you actually get to hit a button.
Yeah.
So you're going to watch all that again. Like, if you have to leave, stay, it's okay. We're like, oh, we'll stay. So he starts it up again, gets a little bit further, and then it completely crashes again.
Oh.
So now we've lost about 45 minutes on this thing, and he again is like, oh my God. And you see like kind of people moving around the back, and it sucked because it looked cool. Like, I don't know if you went to that booth, but that's like the whole booth looked like, like Bruce Wayne's like manor, and then you went to the Batcave to watch it. So then they did it a third time, and at this point it was like over an hour, and we still stuck around. And then that one he kind of got there, but it was kind of like jittering and hitching along the way, but it just kind of like just got to the finish line barely.
Yeah, it was like State of Decay 2 was a demo that was pretty buggy, and it kept crashing, but it was cool because I actually liked it. First of all, because I like it when things melt down, but then I also liked it just because it was fun to see like how dynamic the game was, because they were talking about that, but then actually seeing like, okay, when they replay this section, the zombies are attacking in a different way, things are happening in a different way. And like, Charles, I don't know how much of a nightmare it is for developers, but I mean, unless you have like a very tight schedule, I don't think the press minds nearly as much as developers think they mind when something crashes or there's a bug or something. I think it's kind of fun.
I always, I've gone to a couple of different like conventions and stuff, and I always feel really bad when like something catastrophic goes. I've definitely had those times where it's like, oh yeah, the game's running, and then no, it's no longer running, and then you're like, oh no, I'm so sorry, I really don't want to. I'll try and fix it, and then I'm like troubleshooting, going back and trying to relaunch it or do things like that. It always feels bad because like they're giving you your time to to like sit down and play. You don't want them to have like a bad experience with your game and stuff, or like you've worked so hard to get to this point with this demo, and you have all these hours into it, and then it's like right then it crashes and you just feel really bad.
Yeah.
I think part of it too is like on our side, we're pressed was like, well, I generally consider myself understanding and, generally nice, but, I think when you're giving demos to hundreds of people a day, you can't count on that courtesy from everyone. And there's a level of trust there. It's like, are they just going to focus on like only on this crash? Like how much are they going to write about it, or how much are they going to talk about it on a podcast? And, there's that uncertainty that I imagine is kind of in the back of your head. Like that's part of the heart attack you have when something crashes, right?
Yeah. Not for me particularly, largely because I was just looking for coverage. I was just like, hey, this is the first time that I've ever been in front of press. I guess that was GDC was like the first time I was ever in front of press and stuff for showing a game. But like, for me personally, it was more of just, I don't want to waste your time because I know that you're courteous enough to like come over and play the game. But yeah, there is also that like, oh, then you'll write up, and then the game crashed, and then like that's the large takeaway from it. And I can understand why people would think that.
Yeah, and yeah, it was, I mean, even cover story trips were so bizarre at Game Informer, where it was more of a little bit more of a one-on-one interaction. It wasn't just, a huge group that there might be some weirdos that would write that story, but cover story trips, every single time, it was just like developers are so focused on the build, like, oh, there's these bugs, please don't mind this. I know it looks bad. Like, Brian, we're on the No Man's Sky cover story trip, and Sean Murray just 3,000 times says, oh, we're not quite Naughty Dog. Our tea isn't that good. I'm sorry. It's just like this weird tone of like, the game's a disaster. And it wasn't at that time. At launch it had its issues, but, it got there eventually.
Yeah, I still think back. I'm like, all these years later, like how they are able to kind of turn everything around with that. This is a tangent, but like now that you bring that game up, like the fact they were able to turn it around so dramatically, like take all that feedback and just be like, oh God, and then just like dig in so hard and get the game to where, where they really wanted it to be and beyond, like is incredible.
And that was such a tough time because it was like, that studio is so sweet. We spent a couple days there. They're all great. And then just seeing the amount of crap that they were getting, some of it being like clips from our rapid fire interview with Jeff Cork, where it's a tough line of like, well, I want to be on the dev side here, benefit of the doubt. The internet outrage machine is pointed straight at No Man's Sky. That said, they were pretty misleading when it came to multiplayer towards the end. They could have just had one quick post about like, hey, things have changed, but it was not handled the best way. So it's tough to have a somewhat closer idea of where they were coming from, but then still knowing where they dropped the ball at the finish line there.
Is the Sean Murray head explosion GIF, is that like your most GIFed footage, or is there something that beats that?
That's a good question. That might be number one GIF. That could be number one GIF. I think the Miyamoto cup, where we made him play the cup game, and then it said 2D Metroid underneath, that was up there too. God, that's a good question. I'm trying to remember. That probably is, because I remember at some point, Sean Murray tweeted that he was trying to get into a demo at some convention, and he forgot his ID. And so he said the way that he proved that he was Sean Murray is he Googled Sean Murray and held up a picture of that GIF of him doing the head explode thing. So that's nice. That's a real badge of honor.
You helped him out of a jam.
Oh, yeah. We're here to help. Oh, boy. Charles McGregor, do you know how this whole thing operates?
Bubbly.
It's largely based on bubbly. Yeah, you got it. I see you've watched the MinnMax show before.
I mean, I might be a fan. Maybe.
I like that.
No, I think it's Patreon.
That's right. Patreon.com/MinnMax2 ends. If you support us at any tier, you get access to the wonderful community over there on the Discord channel, which, am I nuts, Charles? Friendly community, yes?
Oh, no. Yeah, super friendly. I was actually playing games with the community earlier.
Oh, really? What were we playing?
We were actually playing Bleeding Edge.
Are you really into Bleeding Edge?
So
Crystal
it was
Chronicles
on Game
and
Pass.
Bleeding Edge, the go-to games for Charles.
I know. Yes, the go-to games for me is Bleeding Edge. No, actually, it was on Game Pass, and I was like, "Hey, I'll give it a go." Finally,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh man, this is actually kind of fun." And then the fact that like it's on Game Pass, then there are other people who can also play the game. And yeah, I just was able to hop online with some community members.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very sweet. Well, yeah, you support City Tier, you get access to the Discord, and also you can submit comments to the Deepest Dive, also to the MinnMax show. Because it's a new month, we have new Wall of Heroes. For your $100 supporter, you can put any picture you want behind us. If you're on the Wall of Heroes and you want to change your picture, definitely let me know. We can swap that out. Also, we let $10 supporters on Patreon vote for the next Deepest Dive, which is our big community game club. Brian Vork, get a load of this. In that vote, did you see this on Twitter, by the way? Am I spoiling anything?
I think I saw it.
Okay. Anyways,
I haven't seen anything.
We let the community vote for the next game club, and if they wanted to do The Last of Us Left Behind DLC, this is kind of like a short one-off, What Remains of Edith Finch, or the film Inception. And guess what won?
I don't know. Inception?
You'd think so. What Remains of Edith Finch was voted on by the community. I think they're just hungry for like a shorter multi-platform game. And so next week, we're going to be playing What Remains of Edith Finch, the 2017, I call it a walking simulator, but that sounds, I don't know, insulting to it. It's an awesome game, a wildly creative game, a pretty dark game, an interesting game. I think it's going to be a really fun one to talk about. So on Monday, if you support us on Patreon, you'll see the post asking for your comment, your feedback, and then we'll read it out loud for the Deepest Dive on What Remains of Edith Finch, which is going to be airing on Wednesday. And we should mention that it's on every platform. It's $20, but it is on sale for only $10 right now on the Epic Games Store if you want to check it out there. So we encourage you to play along with us, and we'll have a good time talking about it. This month,
Do you do a lot of movie options, or
No.
do they ever win?
that was the first one we've ever done. It's kind of testing the waters, and it was definitely second place. It was close, but yeah, What Remains of Edith Finch topped it. But it'd be fun to do more movies in the future and stuff. But we have BeatenDownBrian as a supporter. He's been a huge supporter of MinnMax overall, and he's a saint who supported us at the promotion tier for the podcast on Patreon, and then didn't want to promote anything. I was like, there's got to be something, Brian. So he's like, here's what I'll promote. He says, do you like podcasts? Do you like questions? Do you like interviews with some fascinating folks? Well, have I got a show for you. The 99 Questions Podcast, an oddly numbered interview show where the ever humble and ever handsome host Bob Buel asks interesting people a set of curated, interesting questions. Heck, even TV's own Ben Hansen, has been a guest on it, as has Giant Bomb's Jan Ochoa, Twitch's Mary Kish, and plenty of other good people you'll love to hear about. So subscribe to 99 Questions on all the podcasty things. My name is Ben Hansen, and I'm not reading any of this. All of it is off the top of my head. Great. Thank you for plugging the podcast from the community member Bob Bueller, BeatenDownBrian. Also, we want to thank I Am 8-Bit for their support of MinnMax overall. They want to let everybody know that Creature in the Well, the bizarre pinball-inspired brawler game that is beloved, they are selling limited editions of it. They're only making 2,000 of these things for PS4 and Switch, and you can check it out at iam8bit.com. If you buy anything from that store, which is fantastic, you can use the promo code MinnMax to get 10% off. Brian Vore, you know I Am 8-Bit, right?
Yeah. John Gibson, he's been doing crazy awesome stuff for many years now.
Yeah. And one of those crazy awesome things is agreeing to give a prize away each week to a community member of MinnMax overall with the question of the week for the MinnMax show. And so they sent a big box of stuff for giving away this month, and I have not opened it. So this is a hot unboxing of what we're going to be giving away throughout the month here, thanks to I Am 8-Bit and their generosity. Oh, look at this. Monument Valley, little doll with like bendable legs that you can strap it to whatever you want. Oh my God. Oh, hang on, this is good. They have a lot of albums for sale in their store. So let's see. First one looks like a soundtrack to Florence, that iOS game with an amazing soundtrack. Look at that art. That's fantastic. This is the Uncharted Lost Legacy? Yeah, Uncharted Lost Legacy soundtrack on vinyl. Awesome.
Oh, wow.
And the Donut County. Ooh, this is a thick-ass vinyl. Thank you so much, I Am 8-Bit. Let's see. What do you guys think we should give away this week?
I love that Florence soundtrack.
All right, let's do it. The Florence Vinyl goes to the best question we received. These questions are submitted over at patreon.com/MinnMax2ends. So we will choose our absolute favorite. So everybody, please help remember every single one that we read, and then that person will get shipped out this amazing Florence Vinyl soundtrack. Taylor Reich says, Brian Vore, I've missed you. What have you been doing these last 5 years?
Oh, thanks. I've been trapped on an island and surviving off coconuts. No, I've just been out in the Bay Area, working on some games stuff out there, social media, marketing type business, and had a really good time out there. It was great, and met a lot of cool new people. I loved San Francisco culturally, and God, they have so much cool places to eat, cool things to do. I was a really big fan of the Outside Lands Music Festival and the Clusterfest Comedy Festival. But yeah, it was the traffic gets to you after a while, and the insane expense of everything that you do at all.
That is mind-boggling. Yeah, and you had to drive up to like Novato every day, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's mind-boggling. Was it fun work? What's the takeaway after doing 5 years of tweeting about wrestlers?
Yeah, it was a great time.
Okay.
Yeah, big fan of wrestling, and
You're not burned out on wrestling?
well, not. It's tough. There's just so many hours of it every week now. For a while, the main watching was maybe Raw and NXT. I know there's New Japan, there's all that crazy stuff, but I try to kind of focus on that. But I feel like now the must-watch stuff is Raw, NXT, SmackDown. It's all live, and of course AEW, and watching that live with commercials is real tough. But I'm a really huge fan. I found this like plugin where you can kind of fast forward things, and I just love watching wrestling with just like the fast forward button on, just everyone with super speedy voices, watching the matches play out at super speed and like skipping commercials. Like that's how I have to do it now, except maybe like the big pay-per-views and stuff.
Yeah.
And Marcus, I know you're a big wrestling guy, right?
I am. Yeah. It's I agree with everything. It's a lot. It's especially like WWE alone has too many hours of content, and then you get into like AEW, Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan. It's like you want to keep up with everything, but you kind of got to be really selective. Like even I haven't watched the weekly shows in their entirety in a while. I've just been looking up matches or promos that are like I'm interested in. Still watch the pay-per-views, but yeah, just because I've been busier, it's been harder to like just sit down and watch a 3-hour show live.
Yeah, that's so mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Marcus, do you think if you were working in wrestling, you get fried, you get burned out, even if you're just tweeting about the games for 5 years? Do you think it's too much of a good thing?
I don't know. I had that fear getting into this stuff
That's
in
true.
the back of my mind. Like, would I get fried of video games doing it all the time? And that hasn't happened at all. If anything, it's only enhanced that love. So I like to think with wrestling, it would be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
think
know?
so. I was very scared of that too, of like, well, I love listening to podcasts about games, but if I start at Game Informer, what's that going to be like? And yeah, it turns out I still love them just as much. Like it's had very little
Yeah.
impact. Yeah. So I'm happy to hear you still like wrestling, Brian. And how many times did you use the McMahon reaction GIF?
He had plenty of really good ones, but I didn't really use as much live action stuff as you'd think. Try to keep it focused on gaming stuff.
Oh, I see. That world. Did they ever recreate that
Yeah.
moment in a game? That seems like something they should have done for some easy eyeballs.
There's certain I think there were certain scenes that were like recreations of things that really happened, but I don't think there was a career mode of Vince McMahon being like dazzled by a lady doing things. I don't think that made it into the game.
It's their loss. That's their
That
loss.
should have been like the after you graduate NXT and you meet Vince for the first time, you have to dazzle him. That's how you get on. Yeah, and that's how you get on the main roster if he falls out of his chair.
There we go.
Yeah.
Donnie writes in and says, "Hey everyone, what do you think will work out better in the short run and the long run? Xbox's inclusion of Xbox One in new games along Series X for the next couple of years, or PlayStation's more immediate shift to just releasing their new titles for the PS5? So basically, long run, short run for blurry generational divides versus clean generational divides like PlayStation here.
Like it's I've talked to some people, like friends that like video games but aren't like super into them, and like like I'll tell them like, oh, new consoles are coming this fall, and a lot of them like, oh, I didn't know. And then they'll like ask me about them, and I'll mention like, oh, well, the thing with Xbox at least is that for that first year at least, like every game's coming to both consoles, and the general reaction has kind of been like, oh, so I don't need to get one day one, and it's like, no, not really, honestly. You really don't unless you're like an idiot like me that's going to do it anyway. But
Yeah.
other than that, no, not really. And then the bonus of like, if you do get a game, at least for some games, if you get the new console, you'll get that version anyway, like Cyberpunk. So, don't be afraid to invest. So I would have to imagine a lot of people are having that similar kind of like, oh, that looks cool. But like, if there isn't that exclusive game that's going to make me like, even Halo's on Xbox One, right?
Yeah.
Infinite. So like, even like their launch title is going to be on current gen hardware. And if that's going to be the case, then why, especially this year with people's finances being kind of in the gutter, why spend like $500 for a thing?
It is such a weird duality of thinking like, oh, I think Microsoft has been really great at messaging just games overall for the last couple of years, but thinking that they're really smart and really progressive and really interesting for the strategy, but at the same time then just realizing like, I have a PC. I don't know why I would ever buy that, but maybe that's just, the big joke on their end is like, well, you're going to end up buying the games, you idiot. That's all we want you to do anyway. So who's laughing now?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
care what road you take to get to the game, as long as you buy the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm still subscribed to Game Pass. They got my money. I think they're set.
Yeah, like with Sony, it's like, okay, like I have to buy the PS5 to play this game. You might be like upset, but I guess you get it, so you're gonna do it. Like, oh, that's just how it works. So I gotta get this new console to play this. So,
and there's something kind of exciting. Like you want to have those moments of like, dude, you gotta come over and watch me play Horizon Zero Dawn 2 or whatever the launch game is, right?
yeah, like gotta see Godfall in action, man.
Yeah. I was going to say that I could see it working the other way in Microsoft's advantage, just because if you are saying, well, okay, I'm not going to jump in right now, but I'm going to buy Cyberpunk, then maybe thinking a year or two from now, well, okay, I already own the next gen version. If I do want to get into the next generation already, like you can start locking people down that way. But I think ultimately the bigger issue is going to be those exclusives, and it doesn't like the cutoff line doesn't matter nearly as much as Sony's just going to have a bunch of exclusives that you're only going to be able to play on their system anyway, and that's probably going to drive more decisions for which way people go.
Yeah, it's a weird time for the industry trying to figure out how this is going to go, and I think in the short term, I think this is going to be more successful for PlayStation of having that like PlayStation 5, come on down, buy this system. I think in the long run, I think Microsoft is going to have a strong generation. I know it's weird to even call it a generation because everything's so blurry at this point, but I think they're playing a smarter, longer game here than Sony.
And I do think, oh, sorry, Charles.
Oh yeah. I guess I was going to say is that like, this is like the blurriest a generation has been. Regardless of whether or not you do the hard cut like Sony or you do the really you're just like bleeding into the next generation. Because of that, we're gonna see people still like wait for a while and wait to be, I guess, wowed a little bit in terms of like, oh yeah, have that next gen game that you're like, oh, this is next gen. this is something that I cannot experience on the current console that I have right now, or I'll experience a vastly inferior version of it if I did get it on like an Xbox One or something.
Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna have that weird moment too of like people streaming the Xbox One version of Halo Infinite versus the Xbox Series X, and it's like I don't know how different it is, because it was that weird moment. I don't know if you remember last generation when Titanfall was also released on 360. And like you looked at it, it's like Bluepoint did a hell of a job with that port, like to the point that it's like, I don't know if I need to buy this thing. So Microsoft was like, yeah, technically it's available for 360. Please don't look at it. Because like, I don't think they expected it to be that close. It was really shocking overall.
I think one of the things that kind of speaks to that, though, is their decision to do this Game Pass. And I think that is going to just become a bigger and bigger strength for them.
Yeah.
Whereas Sony has their own exclusives that they're making, but I think it's a really easy selling point to say, okay, you can still play, 90% of the games that come out because they're third party anyway, but we're also just going to give you access to a bunch of them for, a subscription like you're paying for Netflix or whatever anyway. I have been surprised and really pleasantly surprised by just how many times I've gone into Xbox Game Pass and said, oh, hey, this game's in there. Awesome. I wanted to check that out anyway. I think that will start becoming a selling point as we go forward.
Yeah, like everybody with HyperDot.
Oh, I thought you were going to say super hot.
It's always on the tip of my tongue. I always want to catch myself.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, too, that, well, speaking of blurred lines, that they came out with like specs first, and also saying this is our backward compatibility strategy on like, I guess both of them, like they're trying to like be heavily like, look, you still have access to all your old stuff. So why not just bring them all up and, experience them at better frame rates and faster loads and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sean Mason says, hello, Ben and crew. When the PlayStation 5 reveal event eventually happens, what are the odds of a Ratchet & Clank game in the launch window for PlayStation 5? We've heard rumors about potential launch titles such as Demon's Souls Remake, Horizon Zero Dawn 2, Gran Turismo 7, but where's the love for Ratchet? It's been 4 years since the 2016 remake of the first game. Do you think Insomniac spared some resources towards a new entry?
I don't know about launch window, but I definitely see a new one for PS5.
There was when they revealed the new PlayStation Studios thing, Microsoft also redesigned theirs not too long ago, and it's all just ripping off the Marvel intro.
Yeah.
But like on theirs, like it's interesting to see like what franchises they put on there. And I think like Uncharted's on there. I think Little Big Planet is on there, which is interesting at this point. And then obviously God of War, Last of Us, and then they have Ratchet & Clank on there, which is nice. No Jak and Daxter, so it might be hinting towards something in the future. You never know, but yeah, I don't know if Insomniac, it'd be a tough pull. Imagine they're pretty busy with Spider-Man at this point. But I do like how it's just seen as a lock at this point. They're like, wow, Bluepoint's making that Demon's Souls remake, Horizon Zero Dawn 2, and Gran Turismo 7 at launch. Do you think that's going to be the case? Do you think that's what the launch of the PS5 is going to look like?
So like Godfall is a launch game, right? Wasn't that confirmed?
I don't know. This is the one that Gearbox was publishing.
Yeah. So maybe I'm wrong. I
don't know if they said, but I'll look it up. But
Gran Turismo feels, I don't know why, maybe because we haven't heard from Gran Turismo in a while. Like that feels like that would be a big surprise if that was.
That Gran Turismo always feels like a long shot for.
Yeah.
I mean, because we only get one every 15 years. So you're really putting down money if you're saying this is the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sport wasn't as long ago as I thought it was. So I mean, who knows? But it's going to be fun to see.
And the idea that we're going to get Horizon Zero Dawn 2 at launch too.
I can kind of see that.
I can, but also, I mean, that launch is coming up fast. And to have shown nothing for it, like Sony likes teasing their games for a while.
Well, I mean, I think it's because of the weird staggered or like delays of Last of Us and Ghost. And now, I mean, we should have known by the time people are listening to this what their launch lineup is. So like it is right on the horizon. It is right there. But I mean, 3.5 years for cranking out Horizon Zero Dawn 2. I mean, Gorilla, especially, that team does not F around. I think it's doable. And in terms of a big thing to hang your hat on at launch, I think that's probably the best bet.
I mean, Gorilla launched the PS4 with Killzone Shadowfall, so I can see them doing that again.
Yeah, exactly. They know how to hit that target for sure. Dan from Boston says, with Sony and Microsoft struggling with a price point and new controllers that have no fundamental additions, is there a world in which the new consoles are shipped without controllers packed in? No.
No,
we have enough riots in the street right now.
Sorry, Dan from Boston. No go. Josh Labaugh says, hey, MinnMaxers, Min with 2 N's. Thank you for pointing that out. I've had time lately to go back through my stack of 40 or so PS2 games, collecting dust in a closet. 20 years later, I have similar sized library of games for current gen consoles and PC, but it's all nearly digital. There is something to holding that disc in hand, knowing it was the game I played years ago. Today, games are never the game that come on the disc anymore. Final Fantasy VII Remake, maybe one exception. I don't know that I'll ever have this walk down memory lane moment with my PS4, a time where I pick a game out of a stack, open it up, appreciate the blue shiny disc, and chuckle a little at the memories. Are physical games important to jogging your memories overall?
I think so, like, especially just going through a move.
Ooh, yeah.
Lots of crates of physical games, but it's really funny when you see the cutoff of, like, all right, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then smaller for PlayStation, and PlayStation 2. Like, it just keeps, like, getting smaller each generation, whereas, like, the amount of, current gen games are, like, way shrunk down to just this tiny thing. And
now it looks like you barely own a Switch, because it's like, yeah, I've got 3 boxes up there, I guess, if you want to look at some cases, but it's nowhere near representing the amount that you can play on your Switch.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But on the other hand, I'm also just like, you know what? It's nice not to have to worry about some of these boxes getting destroyed in a move. And B, I haven't really done very well with it, but I'm kind of part of the Marie Kondo revolution, where it's just trying to, like, get rid of things and, like, try to minimize. So it's nice having that, like, digital books, digital games, have really, I especially appreciated them in the move, like, just having a digital book library, because those things are heavy.
Yeah, it's going to suck when I eventually move. Yeah, same with the Game Gear. This last weekend, I went out to my parents' place, and I asked them to dig up all the old PlayStation 1 games that I had, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, I have all this old PlayStation 1 games. I'm going to play Tony Hawk 1 again. This will be fun. And then I was kind of bummed out that even my PS1 collection is pretty small. I still have all the old demo discs, which is great. But it's like, man, apparently I sold all of my beloved things, which I really regretted, just not being able to have this moment that Josh had of, like, combing through every game. Because now it's just like the weird remnants that were left at the end, where it's like, all right, Tales of Destiny 2, I guess it's cool to have that physical version, but I have an empty case of Grandia 2 for Dreamcast. I don't know why I own this or why it was in my stack of PlayStation games. It's sad. It's nice to have that one concrete place to look back through and have those memories.
Yeah, I guess that happened to me. I recently was going through my Xbox 360 library of games. And I've gone through my physical library of Xbox 360 games more often than I have my digital.
Okay.
And the only times that I go through, like, my digital library is that I have a physical game that I want to play, and then I boot up the Xbox 360. And I'm like, oh, geez, this is a old interface. And then I go and look and then see that there are still some things that are downloaded on here. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember playing this Xbox Live indie game from back in the day that, like, nobody remembers.
Time to play the Maw again. Yeah.
Yeah, time to play the Maw. But, like, yeah, it's definitely something different where you're trying to, like, you want that experience, but yeah, you're not going to have that experience unless you're presented with it constantly, or, like, there is an opportunity to be presented to that. Like, oh, I just saw it hanging on my shelf. And then I can look at it.
It'd be
in digital.
It'd be a really dumb feature, but I do think there's an audience for it out there. If, like, the new consoles, if there was just some window, like a PlayStation Home-like interface or something, where you could just see a shelf and they have fake physical versions of all the games you've ever purchased for that system, I think it'd be fun to look at instead of like scrolling through this list of like, okay, I guess I installed this demo back in 2014. It's mixed in with all these other things, the YouTube app. You know, it's just like, it's nice to have one place to see everything that you've purchased.
Imagine if Connect was still around. You could actually physically pull it with your hand.
Oh my God, get Milo to pick out your favorite game for you? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are, you know, like some digital book readers and stuff like that where they put in the effort to say, okay, this is your shelf and we will show, you know, virtual versions of them. I would like to have the ability to, you know, look at a shelf of all the digital games that I have and be able to organize them, you know, instead of just saying, okay, ascending or descending, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do wonder how, like, I just packed up all my 360 and PS3 era games too into boxes and put them into storage because they were taking up way too much room. And I did have that same kind of nostalgia, but I do wonder how much of that is just holding a physical thing versus holding a physical thing that's now, you know, 15 years old.
Right.
And I wonder if I could have that kind of nostalgia going through my digital library if it was 15 years from now versus right now, you know, all my PS4 games still feel much more recent, and at this point, it's kind of just like a big pile of shame of, oh yeah, I have to re-download that and play more of that. But
yeah, I guess it is like,
if you could just give it a little bit of interface, and you know, and I like the fact that it's going to, you know, potentially carry with me for generations of future consoles and stuff. That's kind of nice.
Hopefully. Yeah, it's like
one thing that's kind of scary though is, you know, isn't the Wii store totally dead now? The original Wii?
Yeah.
Like it's like, I think I've got some licenses there, but you know, if I want to get access to some of this stuff later, like at a certain point, it feels like what happens when this is shut down? It's not like necessarily, you know, on your iPhone or Apple, like when you have this game, it's kind of follows you everywhere, and you know, if it remains playable on the new operating system, like you'll always have access to it pretty easily. It's kind of nice. It seems like, at least with the new systems, they're very dedicated to like being able to play pretty much everything you can play now,
unless it contains too much music. Yeah. So Midnight Satire says audio is an extremely important and often overlooked part of a lot of media. What are y'all's preferred gaming setup for audio? Headphones, home entertainment systems? And do you think game audio is talked about enough in reviews? Charles, I'm curious to hear your take as a designer, and also you composed all the music in HyperDot.
Yeah, I guess for the first part, I tend to like play through like speakers. So if I'm on my computer, I'll play through speakers rather than headphones. And like I'll use the, I guess a sound bar or some other speaker for like a TV or something. But yeah, in terms of like audio, like good audio, what is the axiom, whatever the correct terminology for that
idiom
is.
verb.
Yeah, where good audio is invisible, where you normally don't talk about how good the audio is. You talk about the entire experience, but you largely hear bad audio stuff. So like the more infamous things are like Mega Man 8 and the VO on that, where it's like, why we, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or Mega Man X7. I don't know. I keep on bringing up Mega Man, but Mega Man X7 and like some of the bosses. If you know Mega Man X7, then you know which boss I'm talking about. Like some of those things are like they're known for being bad audio, and you don't hear a lot about I guess good audio in terms of like sound design or sound effects or voiceover and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess trying to think of a good example of audio. One game I haven't played, but I know I have more notoriety for its like sound effects than the actual game itself is Black, back on the Xbox and PS2. That like everyone that I know who is like, oh, I'm super into like sound design and things like that, like cite Black as an example of like elevating the game to a higher level, like purely based off of the audio and the sound effects and like reloading a gun, firing a shot, and like how well that makes that experience feel. And like that is something that I totally want to like aspire to be able to be like, oh yes, because of this sound effect or this thing, it gave you like such more impact and such more like, oh yes, I feel great, like I want to reload again, and or something like that.
What did you learn in designing a game, especially like a game like yours where you die so often, about like the audio of like how not to get annoyed, because of the audio when you die? You must be like softening and softening and softening, right? Yeah.
So with the music in particular, I wanted to have it so that like it can duck in and out of like you can pay attention to the music and be like, oh yeah, I'm like energized. I'm not necessarily beaten down by the fact that I'm hearing this song over and over and over, because you might be on a level for a little while.
Yeah.
But so I want to have that so that like if it's repetitive, it can be in the background so it's not bothering you. And then in terms of like other like sound cues, I want to make sure that it's really obvious if you got hit, or if there's like a token, you collected a token, then you grabbed a token. It's like here's like a huge audio cue that says you have done a thing, and I want to make sure that you know that you've done this thing, rather than have like some type of did I actually do a thing? Did I actually pull that off?
Right.
Like, yeah. And then like the small touches in terms of like sometimes one thing that actually gets overlooked a lot is UI audio. So a lot of like just going through the menus and like clicking A and back and all that stuff. If you have really annoying selecting sounds, you will not want to play the game anymore. You'll be like, oh, I keep hearing like every time you move down, and it's just super annoying to the point where it's like, yeah, I don't want to be in the menu at all.
Yeah, you're lucky that Final Fantasy has an iconic sound at this point. Because I remember one time when I was a kid playing Final Fantasy VII, my mom came in the room. She's like, "What is that stupid bird sound?" I'm like, what birds are you talking? And it was just like, bleep, bleep, like just a sound of going through menus in a Final Fantasy game was driving her insane. But now it's like, well, that's just classic, to the point that like, I think Transistor's UI, the Supergiant game, I think it's so close to that Final Fantasy menu sound as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for surround sound. Like, if I have friends who just do TV audio, it drives me insane. I'm like, at least get a dang soundbar or something. Like, this TV audio is terrible.
But even when you're playing by yourself, because I'm actually shifting away from the surround sound to the point of like, if you have friends over, whatever, TV audio, yeah, it's not going to be ideal, but it'll be fine. But just like the cost and the hassle of setting up that surround sound versus just a good pair of headphones. And I have found over the last, 5 years or so, I've gotten more and more into gaming with headphones on. And like, I feel like emotional games were more emotional, even like Final Fantasy VII Remake. When I was playing with headphones, I found myself getting more emotional, just being so much more absorbed into it than when I was playing through it with surround sound.
Yeah. Feeling attacked because I don't have that.
Yeah.
It seems like gaming on console, I know PCs had like obviously headphones were like easy to do there, but it seems like with console, headphones are way easier to use now than ever before. Like for most of the part, you just like plug straight into the controller, right?
Yeah.
And you basically have somewhat simulation of kind of surround sound, or I don't know if it's mostly stereo for you, but
no, it's the best.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of developers have really focused on that, and I'm sure it's the issue of not everyone is going to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a surround sound system, but almost everyone has a pair of headphones that they're willing to put on, and it seems like more and more people are buying nicer headphones. And so I have noticed that a lot, because I do still have a surround sound system, and so you really have to go into the menus right away to see what they have set as the default, and it seems like the headphone has becoming the more popular choice for a lot of developers.
Victor Pham writes in and says, "Hello, MinnMax crew. Just wanted to know if you guys had any black voices in gaming that you wanted to elevate and draw attention to during this time, whether it's from the developer side or the content creation side, like podcasts, etc." Thoughts?
Well, obviously, as a wrestling dork, I really love Xavier Woods' Up Up Down Down channel. Going through my E3 memories, I remember when I bumped into him with Dan, and he was talking about, oh, I got this new channel I'm working up. Really excited to, cover, he likes to scratch that gaming itch. Like he's big into things outside of wrestling, like gaming and cosplay and stuff. And to see where that has gone over the years, like it's nuts to see where the channel is now. And really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And goes back to E3 memories too with him of being in the Giant Bomb green room, and he comes in. He's just a good example of there's probably a lot of wrestlers like this or professional entertainers, but obviously when somebody like that enters the room, everybody immediately is like, who is this? Oh my God, it's some wrestler. And just the grace, and he was just immediately like, hey, good to see you. I'm Xavier. Good to meet you. And just shaking everybody's hand. It's it doesn't take that much more effort, I feel like, just to go above and beyond, especially somebody like that when he knows that all eyes are on him, just to be as nice as possible. And so refreshing. I appreciated it so much. Just the way that he carried himself when in a crowd of strangers that are obviously looking at him.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's the nicest guy.
Fellow former GI intern, Odell Harmon.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Friend of mine. He's got, he's been kicking around doing games media for last several years. He's got his own podcast, Full Circle. That's real good. I was on it once. But he's a great guy. He's been on Kind of Funny and some other stuff over the last few years. But he's got he's a hell of a personality. Great mind for this. Very opinionated. Never anyone that's ever been around him. Always never boring. Always cheerful. Always has something to say, which I've always had a great time. We've gone to conventions together and roomed together. Super talented dude. Thinks he deserves more notice, honestly. So.
I feel like his smile is permanently plastered on his face. I cannot picture his face without imagining a smile as big as a billboard, just ready to go and talk about Pokemon. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Taught me so much about Pokemon.
Too much. Charles, is there somebody for you?
Me about Pokemon too.
Sorry, Charles, is there somebody that stands out for you?
Yeah. So somebody that I met at a GlitchCon, which is a local convention. It was at 2015. Is Richie Branson, and Richie Branson is a rapper who also is a game developer. So he was performing there, and then we got to talk and stuff like that, and we've had a friendship ever since. And now Richie is now working at Psyonix and not Psyonix, Harmonix.
Still awesome.
Sorry, yeah. And is is doing that, and he's been doing work at Bleacher Report and stuff like that. But super positive. Really inspirational and is extremely talented at what he does.
Yeah. Obviously there's the Austin Walker, being a big fan of Giant Bomb. When he came out of Giant Bomb, I was like, who is this guy? How can one person be so smart? He's still doing a great job over there at Waypoint Radio and stuff like that. So it's always a delight to hear him talk. Brian Ventura says, hey, I've been thinking about a particular writing cliche that appears in countless game reviews. It goes quote, this game really makes you feel like X. The expression was brought to my attention by Donkey on YouTube as being especially exploited for superhero game reviews. Apparently, numerous reviewers agreed, quote, they really felt like Spider-Man when playing Insomniac's Spider-Man in 2018. Now it seems the phrase is just a silly meme or something to roll your eyes at, but I'd like to consider, I think the quote serves to recognize a truly deep sense of immersion. Is it silly or delusional to say that a game really makes me feel like I'm Batman or Spider-Man, or is it important to recognize this feeling in a game review?
I mean, outside of a game about Batman and Spider-Man, because I feel like if it's those games, that's the number one thing they should be going for. So I think that's okay. But
yeah, I think
perhaps this person grew up in a time where the superhero games are actually good. In my childhood, there was so many absolutely terrible superhero games, and it's like I don't know why Batman has a gun. Why why is there all this weird stuff that violates everything you know about the superhero? Yeah, maybe it's just a sign that a lot of the superhero games are some of the best around now.
That's true, but I wonder if you go back and read reviews for like Spider-Man on Atari, which is just an abomination. Like I thought even the reviews back then are like, you feel like Spider-Man. I feel like it's been a cliche for a longer period than the games have actually been good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a Spider-Man specifically? Like, would you? I guess I could see that for like if you're playing a really nimble character, like I don't know, like in a Prince of Persia. You know, like running away, like, man, I feel like Spider-Man because I'm jumping around flipping.
Oh,
and
interesting. So like outside of those games even? Yeah.
Yeah, like a shorthand to be like, oh, you control, like you're real nimble and you're flipping around and it feels real good.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't use it personally, but
I wonder how much, I don't know, Jeff, I'm like, do you worry about writing cliches? I know you're writing less now than you did at Game Informer, but it's just that thing of like, well, it's just a thing you write. Oh, I felt like Batman in this game. But it's like, well, what does that really mean? You're just got your hands on a controller. Is this just an actual thought, or is it just a cliche that feels like it should go in a review?
Yeah, it's always good to be alerted to those kind of things. I think it is just one of those unconscious things that, you know, we probably don't, like, a lot of reviewers don't go out and read a bunch of reviews from other people a lot of the time when you're trying to kind of keep yourself isolated and keep your opinion to yourself. So you may not recognize that, you know, the certain trends across a large group of reviews like that. But it's whenever, I mean, I will remember that from now on in terms of any other potential conversations I have about superhero games and not falling into that obvious trap.
Right, right.
Do you feel like Jeff and Brian having written reviews, like, I think for Batman specifically, I think people reference, like, when they say that, I think maybe they mean like the combat of like those Arkham games, because a lot of games have aped that. Like, how do you feel about? Because I feel like there was a time when everyone's like, "Oh, this feels like Batman," but they were talking about the combat, and like, did that become like an issue after a while? Like, did you guys ever?
I think we generally tried just not. There is a larger pitfall there of just kind of explaining a game by pointing to other games that it's like, and we always tried to avoid that in general. But that Batman combat certainly is one that I'm sure snuck through in plenty of reviews at GI too.
Well, there's a counter, so obviously
I think with the Batman combat, it was like people didn't really have good 3D combat, you know, third person combat for such a long time, and then when Batman kind of cracked it, everyone's like, oh, okay, if we just do this, then people will be okay. will accept us, you know, like. So I think in some ways you want to tell people, like, hey, if you're curious to how this feels, like giving them some kind of anchor that they know can be handy at times.
Yeah. Steve Bamdad says, no question here, but Hanson, I recommend strongly that you don't give up on Devs, the TV show, and give it another shot. It's only 8 episodes and a miniseries, and episode 4 has one of the most intense sequences I've ever seen in a TV show. Thank you, Steve. Seemed like a lot of people were yelling at me. Please don't give up on Devs, that Alex Garland show, because I watched the first episode and enjoyed it, but I took Anna's suggestion and went over and started watching Succession instead. So maybe after I finish Succession, then I can jump back over to Devs. I don't know. Have you watched Devs at all, Brian?
You know, it's on my wish list. I'm excited. I love Alex Garland's work, and I just did a Parks and Rec huge binge.
Oh, wow.
Because I had never watched it before that. So I really enjoyed all that. And I think it'd be really interesting to see Nick Offerman in what seems to be a very different style of role, but I definitely want to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Yeah, I'm going through Parks and Rec as well. I also completely dodged that show, which seems absurd. So going through it now, it turns out funnier than you think. Even the first season, a lot funnier than you think it would be.
Is it fun to see like the stuff that has been memed and gifted over the years? Be like, that's where that one's from.
Man, right there. Yeah. Doreen Claire says, hey, been in the CLCs. First time, long time. I was playing Life is Strange before the Storms DLC called Farewell. And it made me nearly sob from how moving and powerful it was. It got me thinking, has there ever been a game that really got you all emotionally? It doesn't have to be a full-on sob fest, but it could be. I hope y'all are staying safe, and hashtag Black Lives Matter. Thank you, Doreen. I should mention a lot of people wrote in just with good vibes for Minneapolis and Black Lives Matter overall. So thank you for all those great comments. But talking about games that made you emotional, what's at the top of everybody's stack?
Ooh. So there was a year in which 3 different games like made me semi-emotional to like not like I wasn't crying, but like I was like on the verge of crying.
Crystal Chronicles.
It was Crystal Chronicles and that Bleeding Edge and other meme-worthy things. No, so it was The Walking Dead, Telltale's Walking Dead season 1. That whole experience, especially the ending of that, I was like, oh man, like it really got to me.
Yeah.
Last of Us, that one's a more obvious one, but there was plenty of times in that where like I was emotionally, I guess emotionally invested. I don't know a better way to say that. And then the other one is Journey, and
oh, interesting.
With Journey in particular, it was me and my brother. I was playing the game and my brother was just watching. And we were playing the game, and then we came across really early on in our journey with another person. And throughout the entire time that we were playing the game, we were with that one other person. And one time they like fell off of a cliff, and we couldn't see him anymore. And we were freaking out. We were like, oh my goodness, no, we don't want to lose you. So then we like voluntarily jumped off of the cliff to go to them to like make sure that they were okay. So then throughout the entire, like, then we would like continue going forward through the game. And then at the end, when the credits rolled, it shows you how many players you encountered. And it was just the one player.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, and then like me and my brother just started like clapping. Like we just were like, this was phenomenal. I don't know whether or not I would be able to play Journey again because of that experience.
Oh, that's amazing. I hope they felt that way about you too. I hope it was a two-way street.
Oh yeah.
You're welcome to go
like,
on.
oh, this person.
You can go on Misconnections and just post that, see if you can find your Journey player.
The beginning of The Last of Us specifically still gets me. And it's like the way that prologue ends is probably the only time I've ever like truly teared up in a video game. And it sucks. When that game came out, I saw that intro 3 times in like a week because I started it, and then my roommate at the time started it, and then a friend came over and wanted to see what it was about. So we started a new game, so I had to watch this, and every time without fail, I was just like, I've already seen this. I know it's coming, but like Jesus Christ, like it's so well done. And Final Fantasy X kind of got me back in the day. And a lot of it has to do with the music. And actually recently on that same note, Final Fantasy VII Remake, nothing in a game like story stuff specifically, but
did we lose him?
Oh no.
Let's see. Jeffem, do you want to try and guess what Marcus was going to say made him emotional in Final Fantasy VII Remake?
That cat, right?
I think he's back.
Oh, you're back. Okay, sorry, you cut out. What made you emotional in 7 Remake?
Dang, you nailed it. Yeah, case it. And no, it was like just hearing the scores, and specifically when you meet Aerith for the first time and her music kicks in.
Yeah,
like that hit me in a way I was not expecting.
Oh, and like the crazy thing in the church, she was like, okay, Aerith's theme on a piano, got it. And then it's just like, just keeps building till it feels like somebody is banging that theme out on a piano. It's just overwhelmingly good.
Yeah, like that whole chapter when you're like skipping on the rooftops with her, I loved. And I was like, I just got like surprisingly emotional watching it.
Yeah. Oh God.
I think for me, like a quick, like I'm just scanning my brain. Like those were all definitely in my list for sure. But for a quick scan, like I don't know if you guys played Brothers. That like
yeah
on
Xbox. I don't want to. I guess I don't know how spoiler you get.
Don't do it.
You guys,
don't do it. It's so
don't
amazing.
Do it, or do not do it.
Nah, don't do it.
Okay. But that game has, certain mechanics that you use throughout the game, and then they are somehow changed, and it's very, very well done.
Yeah, it's I think one of the greatest endings of all time. Like the game itself, I think people kind of forget that there's a fair amount of like mediocre puzzling going on in that game. It's like, it's fine. It's one notch above Lego games puzzles, but then the ending's just like, oh, that is so smart and so powerful. It's just the best. Sincerely, Eric writes in. He says, hey, I have a question that helps plug Better Quest, which is our new show with Jeff Cork, which will be streaming on Thursday at 7 p.m. Central, and then it'll be up both in the audio feed for Patreon supporters and on the YouTube channel. Anyways, sincerely, Eric says, what creative ways can people stay healthy while gaming? My best friend will do 10 push-ups after every lost fight in Dragon Ball Z Fighters or Smash. I would like to do push-ups through cutscenes, but still lack self-motivation. Any other suggestions? Oh, also, I know Anna worked on helping with cleanup in Minneapolis, and that kind of awesomeness is what makes me proud to be a Patreon supporter. Oh, thank you so much. Sincerely, Eric. Yeah, little tricks to game healthier. Does anybody have anything?
Well, go
just
for
play
it.
Ring
Go for
Fit
it.
endlessly.
I mean, Ring Fit is large. It's not literally, it's not like, oh yes, I'm playing a Call of Duty match, and in between there, I'll do squats or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, like trying to wrap it around in like a video game sense, that has been super helpful for me personally, where I've been like, oh yeah, I'll totally just play Ring Fit for an hour versus, yeah, I'll just do squats and push-ups and whatever other things for an hour.
Right. Brian?
Still impossible to find.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you get exercise looking for it too.
There you go.
Yeah,
running from store to store.
There you go.
Brian, I remember being amazed going to your house back in Minneapolis before you moved away, because you're the first person I saw that had like the full treadmill set up in front of their TV, and I was like, this is it. You've cracked the code. I'd never considered this.
Oh my God. For a long time there, I had the elliptical set up and I had a TV like way up. So like I would play all kinds of stuff up there. I had an Xbox 360 and that's the way to do it because you're just not thinking about it. Obviously, haven't been able to do that for quite a long time, but now I do have a treadmill here that's been in a box for more than a year or two. Well, I was originally going to do a setup in my garage in my old place, and a series of events like, there was some water leakage and this stuff had to be moved around, and, had a kid. So like all the child things that you need to have are like constantly shuffled in there and out. And so a lot of huge dumb excuses, but I think now the treadmill is right over there. It's staring at me in its box. It looks like a big coffin. Like it's like, take me out of there, and I'm going to start it up again.
Nice.
But yeah, I love that. I know I've seen some people online who play Destiny or like an MMO on a treadmill, and just like they've just like lost so much weight, and then so jealous.
That's so tempting. That seems great. James Smith says, hey, Mr. H and the M team. Sure. Do you think you've played your favorite game of all time yet? I think so. I think nostalgia is such a powerful beast that I think it's safe to say we can all lock it in at this point, right?
I mean, we all have one already, right?
Yeah, it's Final Fantasy VII. Marcus, what is it for you?
Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Wow. Okay. All right. Jeffem?
Probably Link to the Past still.
Okay. All right. Charles?
I think The Last of Us at this point.
Wow. Brian Vore, is it Super Metroid? Wait, we didn't hear what you said.
Yeah.
What is it? Okay, great.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Sometimes it's between that and Chrono Trigger, but yeah, Super Nintendo was a pretty big era for me.
I mean, that's the thing is Last of Us Part 2, even if it's incredible, is there any way it can dethrone the first one for you, Charles?
I don't know. I guess I was part of the camp that was like, I don't want another Last of Us. I want this to be a one-off. Yeah. And then when they did Last of Us Part 2, it was a smart way to make it so that you can make a sequel to that. And I'm eagerly anticipating it. I I guess I am excited and I'm hyped for it, and I want it to be really good, but I have my expectations lower to like it's going to be nearly as good or as good. I don't think that it will like. I don't want to have it so that I have like these preconceived expectations of like, yes, it has to be the greatest thing ever.
Right, right. And even if it is as good as that first one, which is going to be a high bar to clear, at that point, then it's like, yeah, but I guess the first one was more of a surprise for me.
Yeah, and yeah, the first one, like, I knew that it was going to be good, but I had zero hype for it because I was just like, well, it's Naughty Dog. It's going to be good. Yeah, we'll just check it off. But then when the reviews started coming in, I was like, oh. And then when I played it, I was like, oh. So yeah.
It makes me feel like Batman.
It makes me feel like Batman.
Anthony Brown writes in and says, hello to all the MinnMax crew, plus extra. Hello. I've been playing PSO2, Phantasy Star Online 2, since it launched last week on PC. I decided to play it because I loved playing PSO on the GameCube when I was a kid, and the nostalgia continues to this day. What game series do you think has the longest period between sequels? Yes, I know Phantasy Star Online 2 came out in Japan in 2012, but still. Yeah, I mean, that's a decent gap. I mean, so around 13, 14 years for that. Can anybody top that for game sequels and the gap between them?
If you're doing numbered sequels, I was just looking through those old E3 photos from 2005.
Yeah.
And they were promoting Kingdom Hearts 2.
Well, but I don't know. It can't be like I like entries period, but number sequel, that's a good number.
Like the spin-offs count?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they do. I think just time since a new entry. I think
What about so what's Shenmue 3?
Oh yeah. That's a really good one. So 2001? 2002?
Wasn't 2 like 04?
I think Shenmue 2 was 2002.
Or was it earlier?
Okay. I think just because we just went through that decade on the latest episode. Oh, Shenmue 2 was 2001. Okay, so 18 years solid. I have you beat by 1 year, though, with Kid Icarus. Because Kid Icarus on the Game Boy was Of Myths and Monsters. That was 1991, and then Uprising was 2010. So 19 years.
Hanson, how about Chex Quest?
But that's a remake.
I don't care. That was the best I could do. I didn't get this prompt before we started. So
all right, that's not bad. Write in if you can top that, please. I'm curious to get the hive mind of the internet to see if there's a bigger gap. There's got to be some weird.
Yeah, would you consider Duke Nukem Forever a sequel?
Yeah, of course.
So I guess then that one's a pretty long one. I don't think that it's Kid Icarus long.
Let's see. Duke Nukem series. Because Duke Nukem Forever was what, 2013? Oh boy.
2010?
2011, I guess.
2011.
Oh, geez.
And then, of course, the Duke Nukem Wikipedia entry, which is actually my homepage. So 1996 was Duke Nukem 3D. So that's up there. I can't do math, but everybody knows that apparently that's 15 years. So that's a good entry. Try and top it, community. Nate McClellan says, hello.
Wolfenstein.
What's that? What was that?
What about Wolfenstein?
Oh.
Ooh, that's a good one.
No, because there was like the Activision Wolfensteins.
Oh, the Raven?
Yeah.
I ruined it.
Yep. No dice. Nate McClellan says, hello, Ben, Marcus, and Brian Vore, ? And others. How long do you think it'll be until we're watching full-length movies in Fortnite? They've shown trailers, have hosted concerts, and even promoted Rise of Skywalker in the game. So how long until Epic gets permission from a movie studio to do a, quote, movies at the park kind of deal and show a movie? Keep up the great work, and I'm looking forward to Better Quest. Thank you. He says that he thinks it'd be cool, and he doesn't even play Fortnite. Does that defeat the purpose? If it's just there to promote things, like that's the reason these companies are all about it, is it just kind of giving away the cow if they're like, hey, come in here and just watch Rise of Skywalker?
Does it have to be a new movie or just any movie?
Oh, that's interesting.
I would say they'd probably do, like, oh, here's the original How to Train Your Dragon. Now go watch the new one, when it comes out or whatever.
Yeah. God.
Because in that case, I will say before this year ends.
I think
I'm
that's
surprised it hasn't happened already.
maybe it has and we've missed it. I know they had like the Tenet clip, but I forget if they actually screened Inception in there.
Yeah, I think if any studio even hinted at wanting to do that, Epic would be like, yes, we'll take it. And also this question would be very different too if there wasn't pre-pandemic versus current. Like, as the longer we don't know how real movie theaters are going to open up, their studios are going to be looking at different ways to deliver their films. And this kind of is an interesting vibe of how they can make you feel like you're watching a movie with people, but in a virtual space that's safe, at least for, spreading contagions and stuff.
So if they decide to release Tenet like digitally, just have some sort of Fortnite debut of it, and then Christopher Nolan can roll in his grave as people are jumping with pickaxes in front of the screen for 2.5 hours.
Okay. Would it be cool just to stream the movie Battle Royale in a Battle Royale?
Ooh, that would be great. Yeah, that's a fun idea. At this point, yeah, they're not scared of competition. They should just stream like PUBG matches within Fortnite as well, just like fully invert it. Why not?
Yep.
Jonathan Din says, "Hey, been in the CLCs. What game have you played that for some reason or another made you platinum or get all of the achievements? For me, it was the original Catherine on 360. For some reason, I was compelled to get all the achievements, but I normally am not one to platinum or get 100%.
I've had a couple of non-platinum moments, I guess. I've had like Nintendo related non-achievement stuff.
Oh,
where
okay.
I'm like, I'm playing this random game, and then I get a little bit into it. I'm like, I have to complete this game now. A random game, a semi-random game on the Switch is Hiroki. You play as a helicopter guy, and you're like trying to navigate all these levels and stuff, but you have like a bunch of collectibles. It's a semi-collectathon kind of thing. And then I got really into it, and then it was just, that's all I was doing. I was like, I have to complete this. In terms of platinums, I've had many attempts, but have failed at doing platinums.
I'm so sorry.
I know. I also apologize. I'm the one that is like the biggest shame that I have not gone back to yet is Marvel's Spider-Man. I'm like 4 trophies away from platinuming it, but I have to. One of the trophies is replay the game. So that's part of the reason why I have not done that.
Oh, that's a weird one. Huh. Rich McLaughlin says, "Hey y'all, what's a game trapped on an old console that you'd love to see ported or remastered for current gen?"
I'd love to see that the Metroid to 2D Metroid, 2.5D Metroid that was on 3D. I know this is not super old, but the 3DS Metroid, I'd love to see that on the Switch.
Oh, so like the remake of Metroid 2, just port that?
Yeah.
That's a good bet.
I co-sign that.
Right, and now it's going to happen.
There's a really this game popped up randomly, but I loved it. There's a game called Rogue Galaxy for PS2.
Yeah.
That's the level 5 kind of third-person RPG we played as like space pirates.
Yeah.
No one ever really talks about it, but I remember loving it back in the day and like finished it. And I've always wondered, like, I mean, I guess I'm not surprised it hasn't ever been revisited because I don't know how it's sold, but like I was like, man, it'd probably be safe to just like, why not just put that on Switch or something? I'd probably play that game again. I like that game.
Yeah, God, I wonder who owns the rights to that at this point.
Still level 5, wasn't it? Right?
Did they publish it though?
I think so.
Weird. Maybe. Yeah, God, I completely forgot about that game. But there was a blip there. I remember where everybody was like, no, this game rules.
Yeah, you ran like your own little factory.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I was thinking of like old PC games that are just dead in the water. Something like Simcopter. Could bring that back. And I was thinking even, what if like City Skylines, those folks, they made their version of Simcopter. They already... made a better version of SimCity than EA did. Now they can just make that and then have that interconnection as well, so you can fly the copter through your city skyline cities. That would be sweet.
Oh my goodness.
I like the framing that Rich has here, though, of calling it trapped, because that's how it feels. It's like, oh God, that game is just locked away forever on that PS3 with no way of getting off. Right. So sad.
Does PT count?
I guess so. Yeah, that's kind of the ultimate trapped game. It's trapped because it's too scary. Jason Wojnar says, hello, folks. I don't know if you knew this, but you recently decided to rent out your spare room, and the 4 silent protagonists have answered the call. Gordon Freeman, Chrono, Link, and Claude Speed from GTA 3. I never knew his last name was Speed.
I didn't know he had a last name.
Which one do you rent out the room? In this scenario, you're living as you do now, so keep in mind when choosing the roommate. Which one would you feel safe living under the same roof as your children and wouldn't make your spouse or loved one want to leave? So Gordon, Chrono, Link, or Claude?
I mean, it would have to be between Chrono and Gordon, right? Because if it was Link, pots would be broken.
How many pots do you have sitting on your house?
I didn't even think about that. He would destroy your house.
Yeah, the house
My wife has a lot of potted plants.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, Link's gone. Also, he's very loud. He doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, he's just screaming, It won't do. It won't do.
Stubbed his toe in the doorway in the morning.
Yep. Claude is a serial killer, so probably no Claude.
Yeah.
He'll bring home a lot of money, though.
That is true. That is true. And he'll park a lot of sweet cars in our garage.
Yeah, as long as you don't ask questions.
For Gordon, you'd have to worry about your crates.
Yeah, but like I don't have many crates.
I feel like
I just packed my crates away recently.
out of anybody here, I feel like Gordon has the potential to be the most chill. I'm sure now he's just a frazzled mess because he's killed too many head crabs and he's nuts. But at the same time, like he's a scientist, he's a smart guy. I feel like if you took him out of that environment, he'd be able to be quiet and crunch some numbers and just, stalk old girlfriends on Facebook or whatever the hell Gordon Freeman would do in his spare time, right?
Does he?
Until G-Man shows up, though, and like,
ooh, so you got to think of the
open some
connections.
portal into your home and aliens start spilling out.
That's true. Do these characters come with their baggage?
I don't know.
Are there villains going to come after them in our house? Like, is Ganon going to show up if I invite Link over?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also a good point.
Is Chrono just the safe bet?
I think Chrono's just a random dude.
Yeah, he's he kind of gets pulled into his adventure, right?
Yeah,
But
he does
he's
have
not
that.
like.
Can you imagine like waking up and walking through your kitchen though, and he's just got that sword, just always dangling off him. He's always ready for a fight. He's in his weird pose, ready to fight at any moment.
That's pretty cool. He probably teach you like how to do some cool team up attacks.
Ooh, but think about this, Marcus. Chrono in the bathroom every morning, getting that Toriyama hair ready to go. That's a long, long time.
That is true. That is true.
Cutting your sandwiches with an X.
Oh, no, Frog's here too.
What?
Well, I guess if Frog is coming, then of course he has to come by because I would like to live with Frog. I would like to marry Frog. So let's
that's
make it
true.
happen.
If he invites everyone over, you have like cool parties every night. Cave.
Hell yeah. Magus
All right.
can't come inside. He just sucks too bad. This weird pouting weirdo. All right, Chrono, come on in. Here we go. Okay, what do you guys like for question of the week? I hear rumblings of thoughts.
Yes.
Roommate question, I think, got us to be the most creative. I don't know.
It is true.
That is a good one.
I like the physical games one. I like just the classic console bore about what's the smarter play. Or I like the biggest gap between games.
Yeah, I like the biggest gap, and I liked the emotions one. And I also like the console generation one. That one is
Which question made me feel like Batman the most?
You got one, Marcus? Does one stand out for you?
Man, I think it's coming down to the roommate, the console generation question, and the biggest gap.
Okay.
Those are some real thinkers.
I like the biggest gap. I hadn't thought about it before. Jeffem, can you sign off on that?
Sure.
All right. Anthony Brown, congratulations. You win this amazing vinyl soundtrack for Florence, thanks to I Am 8-Bit. So thank you so much. They'll ship out a brand new copy, not the one that I opened, I promise. And now it's time for Get a Load of This.
Cue the music.
Oh, you know how the show operates, Charles. My God.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, Charles?
Sure. So get a load of this.
Woo!
I know. So amongst all of the craziness, there was recently there was a speed run record broken from Mario 64, for the 120 star world record. And what happened immediately after that happened, the streamer, simply N64, told his parents this. And the things that proceed afterwards is like the most super, it's like super wholesome, so like heartwarming, that I would highly recommend watching that, because it's just so, it's like it lifts your spirits.
So this YouTube clip, it'll be in the description for the YouTube or audio version of the show. All right, that's sweet. Jeff,
get a load of this. Asmodee, which is a big board game publisher, has been doing this cool thing where they've created an entire website of print and play games, since everyone, a bunch of tabletop people are stuck at home alone. And so it allows you to print off kind of smaller versions of a lot of their games, but one of them is a Ticket to Ride kind of like pseudo expansion that's called Ticket to Ride at Home, I think. And it's basically the map, instead of being a map of America or whatever other country that you're building trains around, it's just a map of someone's house. And all the different routes are like from the refrigerator to the couch and stuff. And so if you have a copy of the game, it still uses the trains as the pieces that you're building out, but then you kind of print out cards, for like different family members of where they want to go to and stuff. And it's just a very cute, fun, free thing that they put out there to kind of help keep people busy and have fun during the pandemic. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw that they made, what's it called? Print and play? Print and play version of Pandemic as well, which is like a shorter version, which might be mentioned in an upcoming MinnMax interview. I think I'll probably put that live on Friday, so look forward to that. Marcus Stewart?
Yeah, this is, get a load of this. This is a couple weeks old, but I think it still helps, is that, John Krasinski, actor, has like his own like news show on YouTube called Some Good News.
Yeah.
That him and his wife, Emily Blunt, have been doing. I don't know how old it is. I had it randomly recommended to me on YouTube, but I think they just started doing it during the pandemic with them at home.
Yep.
And it's just them highlighting like just really awesome good stuff happening in the world, like just videos of people either doing funny or cute or just uplifting things. And they I saw an episode where they literally married a couple that were like huge Office fans, and I guess like the guy like recreated the proposal of Jim to Pam like at a gas station.
Oh wow.
And so like he found them on Twitter and had them like do a surprise Zoom wedding where he had like both of their families pop up, and then had like a bunch of the Office cast come in and all take place in this like surprise Zoom wedding, and he got like ordained as a minister and married them right there.
Wow.
And then it just ends with this giant like dance party with all the Office cast, kind of again like recreating the wedding from the show.
That's
and
amazing.
it was like so much fun to watch, and like the whole episode's great. And I guess like I looked at some of the previous episodes, like it's just the silliest, like just the two, like him and his wife just having a good time making these kind of homemade new sketches, but that put a huge smile on my face. So.
Well, I hate to take the smile off your face, but I don't know if you saw that the internet was outraged because he sold the show to CBS, and people were like, "You sold out, Krasinski! F you!"
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so now it's all going to be just about plugging CSI or something. So please look forward to that. Brian Vore, you got one?
Yeah, mine is an upcoming event that I'm looking forward to. I saw that Sesame Street is teaming up with CNN for a town hall called Coming Together, Standing Up to Racism. Very much excited to see. Obviously, Sesame Street for decades has been, a great resource to kind of talk to kids and adults alike about, various issues. And I know they've already done one on kind of COVID, like how to kind of talk to COVID with your kids. And very much excited to see how they do this. It's supposed to happen, I think, on Saturday morning. I don't have the exact time in front of me, but
are you going to sit the kid in front of the TV?
What's that?
Are you going to sit the kid in front of the TV and make a whole event of it?
Maybe. She's not necessarily she loves Sesame Street in general, but I don't know if if she's doesn't necessarily understand words,
let alone racism.
Outside of flowers, and she has a giant teddy bear named Bobby. So, but I think it'll be handy, especially for a lot of people with kids older than mine.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great one. But I'm sorry you didn't say get a load of this, so I guess nobody can check it out. Hey, get a load of this. There's a Patreon called RKG. I think they split off from IGN. Charles, do you know them?
Not familiar.
Okay, but anyways, the point is they were streaming this game, and I didn't know what the hell it was, but it's called GeoGuessr. Maybe this is old. Maybe everybody knows GeoGuessr, but it's Geo and then Guesser, but without the last E, so it's just SSR at the end there. But it's a game. You can go to their site. You can play it once a day for free, which is a fair amount of time. And what it is it's like takes Google Earth and just drops you randomly in a place. And you can set a time limit if you want. So you're dropped randomly in a place and you have to figure out where you are. And then you have a world map and you drop a pin where you think you are, and then you get points based on how close you are. And it's 5 rounds of that. But I played it last week and I had such a good time because you're just dropped in and immediately, like, it's fun to play with a group because it's like, South America, I think this is Africa. I think this might be India. And just everybody trying to then comb through looking for details and like trying to zoom in on signs to get any idea. You end up Googling a lot of words in other languages trying to figure out where you are. And we did one where, I'm sure this isn't impressive at all, but we're in some backcountry. It's just rolling green hills trying to figure things out. And there's some sign mentioning something. And we drop the pin. And it turns out we were like 1,000 yards away from this place in New Zealand. Like, man, getting it down to 1,000 yards is crazy. And it's really fun to then compete with friends about what the high score is overall. But
I would have said Green Hill, Montana.
Don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. Do we have a community get a load of this pulled from the Discord, Jeff?
Yeah, we do. Get a load of this. Nick DeFeo posted this one. It is a tweet from someone named Parita Cassandra. And it says how to donate money to Black Lives Matter when you have no money. And basically, I'm not sure if she did it or someone else, but she's linking to a YouTube video that's an hour long. That's basically music and stuff, but they added a bunch of ads to it. And so the ads will make the revenue, and then they're going to donate the money to Black Lives Matters. And so they said basically you can just you can listen to the music because it's all music from Black artists and stuff. But then you can just leave it on loop, and every time that one of the ads plays, it will, make a little money, and it's gotten 5 million views at this point, so it's presumably making a decent amount.
It's rare in 2020 to be struck by a new idea on the internet, but that is so smart. God, That's amazing. Wow, there we go.
So we'll put the link down in the video.
Yeah, great choice. Let's see, Marcus, what would you like to plug, sir?
You can check me out on my YouTube channel, like you said earlier. Marcus Makes Media. Got my Finishing the Fight Halo series. So if you're a fan of Halo and want to watch me semi-bumble my way through those last few games, you can check that out. Also, my Twitter is at MarcusStewart7. It's the number 7. And I'm also on Twitch at Marcus Streams Games. I'm streaming Assassin's Creed Odyssey right now, trying to get through that before Valhalla comes out.
Oh boy!
And my personal website for / portfolio for like my written stuff, because I write game reviews mostly for Screen Rant and some other sites. MarcusWritesAboutGames.wordpress.com. Hit me up.
Sweet. If people check out your YouTube channel, what do you think is your best archive stream or your best video there? What is a good place to start?
You know what? How about 30 Days of Backlog? That's all archived in one playlist. That's where I played during the lockdown here in Florida. I played a different game from my backlog every day for 30 days straight. So it's a nice little poo-poo platter of me playing video games. So there's probably something in there that you're like, oh, I like that game. So try that out.
That's awesome. Charles McGregor, what would you like to plug, sir?
I guess I would plug Tribe Games, so you can follow Tribe Games at Tribe Games on Twitter, or me personally at DarkHazeTG. And please play my game. I made it. I want you to play it, please.
And it's
HyperDot. It's not super hot. It's HyperDot. But yeah, you can play HyperDot on various platforms like Steam, so PC, Mac, Linux, itch.io, and then also on Xbox and Windows 10 as Play Anywhere. And if you have Xbox Game Pass, you can also play it from that.
Awesome. And we're so close to getting those Steam reviews. So if you do play it on Steam, please write out a review.
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. Brian, anything you'd like to plug in your new life over here in Minnesota?
I guess the other thing that comes to mind is having a good time with Ross Fund, who has been on some of your podcasts for some Star Wars content.
He's the Star Wars
Always
guy.
does a good
Yeah.
job. We have just an informal fun thing we like to do called the Nintendo Fun Club, where we just kind of play through some games. We don't stream it. We kind of talk about it on Twitter sometimes.
What are you doing? Why don't you stream that?
We probably should. We always just like slowly play it and then text each other about it. I'm really dragging the group down. I'm dragging the group down. I'm supposed to be playing through a bunch of Wall Street Kid, and it's I really just need to hop on it, and then I have to pick the next game. So I really feel bad. Sorry, Ross and Dusty.
Great. Well, okay. Well, maybe you guys can stream it, and then you'll be pressured socially to participate more. Okay. I assume you nodded completely, even though your audio cut out. Great. And thank you to all of the supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/MinnMax2ends, and especially the $50 supporters who are as following. I am 8-Bit, BeatenDownBrian, Krista Knutson, Nick DeFeo, Rebekah Lang, Zachary Pligge, The Smack, Mark Seliga, Jawarhello, Andrew Vala, Bob Buel, Jesse Vitelli, Mirko Arico-Torreno, TimeBombTom, Yarrow, Josh Elliot, Captain Stubbs 1, Tyler Carver, Michael Jaques, Christian King, Adam Walker, JT Fels, IanTClark, Ludwig Roque, Steve Bamdad, Andrew Sanford, Matthew Paxton, David Lacolucci, and Midnight Satire. Thank you so much, everybody. Be good, have fun, let's go.